Thanks so much for coming over.
No, man, thanks for inviting me. I mean, it's not every day I get asked to do a podcast or at my age, it's sort of like, it's good to be asked to go anywhere. So
you're not that old, Gerry.
I am, mate. I just turned 54. Believe that?
I guess depending how you look at it. But 54?
Yeah.
Halfway.
To what?
To the century?
That's right.
Now, I'm just going to chuck on a voice memo.
Yeah, just a backup. Yeah, man.
Backup.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I got your little SSL thing. Yeah, that's great. These ones are great, man.
The latency is so good.
Yeah, like virtually nothing, right?
It's like 4.4 or something, like milliseconds. Like
you can't even tell
no,
that.
It's outrageous.
Nah. Yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, it's good to put a face to the name now, man. It's good. I checked out some of the other stuff you've been doing on your thing and who you've interviewed too. Some great musos there, man.
I've been very lucky.
Yeah, it's great,
Well, and I don't know you, so thanks for doing it. Because most people, I know, so it's lovely to get the chance to, talk to you.
Well, when you kind of drop Bretto's name, and I think that's how it kind of maybe snowballed a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And Brett's one of my sort of musical heroes, man. Cool. And so he's, if he comes as a recommendation, it's like, yeah, man, I'll take that. No worries.
That's what I thought. Because my first live gigs in Melbourne was my dad taking me at 12, 14 to see you play the Damage shows at Spencer's.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
It is, isn't it?
So was that because we kind of started that in 2009, 10, 11. We kind of wrapped it up around 2012 or something like that.
Yeah.
So how old were you again?
So year 7. So 12, 13.
Yeah.
Because I was year 7 in 2008.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So basically my high school, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. And Dad was a huge Fusion fan.
Sure.
And so I'd grown up on all the Fusion guys, and then it was oh my gosh, I'm seeing local guys in our town playing this kind of music.
Yeah.
Just blew my mind.
Yeah, it was it was kind of a really good period there. We were a unique band, as far as nobody was doing that stuff. I mean, and at that time, there was no band like that.
No.
So Melbourne was kind of starved for that sort of thing, and the coup was actually, Phil Turcio, who was the keyboard player, we always wanted to put something together. Because he was part of On the Verge, played with Virgil's band for ages and stuff like that, and there'd been a big gap between what he did then with that sort of lineup.
Yep.
With Verge and to what we were going to put together. And so we were kind of toying with doing something.
Cool.
So it was just meant to be let's just play some of our favourite sort of, tunes and then throw in a couple of Phil's originals and things like that. And, which is how it started. But what we both agreed on, we go, wouldn't it be great if we asked Brett Garsed to play with us? And Phil had I think had worked with Brett on a few things on the side, and I had not played with Brett. Sorry, I actually played with him once. It was an opening of a music shop, about 97, 98 or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a music shop called Music Boutique. I think it was in Baldwin. A lot of if people are listening to this, they might remember this music shop. It was great store for guitar players, bass players. A lot of not so much a drum hang, but more just for guitar players and bass players and what have you, and a lot of acoustic type instruments. And we did an opening for that, and the band that was put together for to play during the day was really cool, man. It was it was Roger McLaughlin on bass. It was Simon Hossett on guitar. It was the late, great Stewie Fraser on guitar and Brett Garsed.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to be asked to kind of jam with those guys, be part of the rhythm section. And, I got real great memories of that day because the first number we played was it was like a hip-hop version of So What.
Okay.
that sort of thing, right? And so, somebody played the head somewhat, and Phil was on the gig too. I remember Phil being on the gig too. And the first person that took a solo was Brett. And once he finished, all the other guitar players kind of looked at each other and just didn't want to take a solo after him, which I thought was really, really funny,
Yeah.
And each one of those guitar players, they're monsters in their own right, and they got their own unique voices. And what I loved about it was, that they were like, not scared of taking a solo, but just in awe of Brett.
Yeah.
We were all in awe of Brett. I first came across him watching the John Farnham Whispering Jack live concert on TV when I was 16.
Yeah, right.
And thinking, who the hell's this guy? And the concert was simulcast on radio. I remember I taped it off the radio. I had a cassette of that live gig, and so I was a bit of a fanboy,
Sure.
and so. And that was the first time I got the chance to play with him. He probably doesn't even remember it, but I think it was from that point onwards, once we were able to put something together with Phil, that Brett was going to be we wanted to play with Brett. And Craig Newman, of course, Craigus. Yep. He's a long-term friend of mine, and when I was a student, I used to go and see him play with my drum teacher.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so it's interesting how that kind of happens. You see people you go and see a gig, and these great players, and you don't think that one day you might be playing with them, or at least hanging out, or at least forging a friendship with them. But that's the beauty of what we do. It's kind of like that happens, And so so that was a great period of doing that gig. It was great, and it was great for my playing because it really sharpened up a lot of things. From the rhythm section side of things, but also from the improv side of things, from accompanying the soloists, all that sort of stuff. Because I treat fusion, that sort of environment, whoever's the lead instrument, that's the vocalist. I always consider that to be the vocalist, the one who's leading the song, whether it's Phil playing the melody or Brett playing the melody or anyone. It doesn't have to be Damage, it could be any playing sort of jazz, rock, fusion-y environment, I think that's the important thing about why Damage was great as a band. We were a band. It wasn't just four guys trying to outdo each other, which can sometimes be the case, right?
Yeah.
So it was never that. It was always the tunes came first, and we had a great mixture of tunes that we played. Some of Brett's solo stuff, some of Phil's solo stuff, and some sort of covers that we wanted to play. I remember we would play a Return to Forever tune called "Hymn of the Seventh Galaxy," epic tune, great, frantic, But it was one of Phil's ideas. Hey, let's try this, and so we did, and it was just great to play other people's music, obviously, and interpret it our way, and get a chance to stretch out. But that would, I'm just interested to ask you, like, how old were you when you saw that gig?
Yeah, like 14 to 16, that sort of.
And you're not originally from Melbourne?
No, I am from Melbourne.
You're from Melbourne.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. But they were like the first time I was taken out to see gigs.
Yeah. Wow. What a baptism.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how did you feel about like seeing that stuff?
It was really exciting.
Yeah.
I'd gone through a long period of resistance to fusion.
Right.
Because Dad would play it all the time. And I was like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah,
put on some Michael Jackson or something.
Of course.
But I think just from a forced exposure over 10, 12 years, then it sort of clicked and it was like, oh wow, this is incredible. And so Dad had heaps of Lee Ritner and Larry Carlton, all those records, and you've played with Larry, which is
I'm lucky enough to
amazing
be given that opportunity.
So there's all the studio stuff, but then also all the baked potato jams and the bootlegs and stuff. So just Vinny going nuts.
Yes.
And by the time I was 12, 13 and started high school, I was just I'm really into it. So then coming to see you, and it was that's what's when it's there, because what it's like listening to records, it's exciting and stuff, but so different to being immersed in the room.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just feeling just air being pushed.
Yes.
you know.
Yep.
And we were lucky. That venue, Spencer's Live, was a terrific venue. It was a real gem in Melbourne because the room sounded great. It wasn't terribly echoey or big, sort of like big sounding, but it was dry enough where it had a bit of vibe. But the PA that we had in that joint, or they had in that joint, was great. It was really, really, really good. And I used to go and see gigs there too. Like I'd go and see some of my friends play there too and enjoy the mix. You know, sit down and go, wow, this sounds unbelievable. You know, I saw some great gigs there, man. You know, it's a shame it's no longer a room, but so that's so you kind of miss that you know, you can listen to albums as much as you like, you can watch YouTube clips as much as you like, you can, but you're never going to get that feeling of hearing a band live and just watching it being done and listening to it being done, you know. Wow, that's fascinating. Wow.
Yeah.
Now I feel old, you know.
Sorry.
That's okay, Luke.
But you were saying you were in high school going to watch gigs and stuff too,
Yeah.
so, you know, and you're playing with
Yep.
Craig and Brett. Like,
Yep.
what's it like going from watching an artist to then playing with them? Like, how do you handle that? Especially, like, let's say, like, in your earlier career, because you've been doing it a little while.
Oh, I have been, yeah.
But, like, the first few times that you were asked to take on a gig with, like, someone who was a hero for you, how did you approach something like that?
That kind of, someone being a hero for me probably didn't happen until much later.
Okay.
You know, like you mentioned Larry, you know, there's a hero. You know, I listened to a lot of his stuff growing up purely because my brother's a guitar player and he was bringing home those records, you know.
Yeah,
so
right.
I got exposed to that stuff too, you know. But as far as like, you know, like the early days of actually landing a gig of some sort of, I guess, you know, the front people or the front person is of notoriety. Well, you're there for a reason. They've obviously asked you to play because they really like what you do and what you can bring to the situation. You know, I think, actually, I'm going to backtrack a little. It just dawned on me, like, I guess the first time that really happened was in my mid-20s when I got a call from Tommy Emmanuel to do a tour with him. He hadn't heard me play, but I was upon recommendation from his bass player, Robbie Little.
Wow.
And I'd been playing with Robbie, doing gigs around town, and I was kind of like the new kid on the block sort of vibe, you know. And that always, you know, what kind of happens in your early 20s, in the mid-20s, and then somewhat your late 20s, you know, where you kind of start making waves where people, it was different back then, you know, like we don't have social media now where you can promote what you're doing via your Instagrams and what have you. It was more like word of mouth and people coming to see you play or hearing you on a recording or something like that. So I got this call from Tommy. And it was out of the blue, and I thought it was a joke, you know. And he said, you know, I got come around to my place, bring your brushes, and we'll run through the repertoire. And I'm thinking, what's going on, you know? So I went to his house and brought my brushes, and I played on a phone book, which is he's notorious for making drummers play.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's just a great sound, you know.
Yeah.
And we played things. We were running through some tunes, and and it kind of dawned on me when it all finished. Well, that was like my audition to see whether I can play some of this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I was too young, naive to even realize that's what was going down. And and so I, you know, the next moment I knew was like we were in a room rehearsing, and it was more like an acoustic thing. We had a string quartet. Tommy played acoustic the whole night. And I played sort of like just brushes and blastics the whole gig, you know, on a 5-piece kit or something like that. And so so I was in awe of this guy, of Tommy. Yeah, I'd grown up listening to him play, and all of a sudden now I'm playing his gig. And it's like, okay. So I just concentrated on just doing my thing for him, what was needed for him. You know, it was never putting my, let's say, you know, playing agenda ahead of that. You never do that. Or else, you know, musos and singers, they pick up on that they can certainly hear it when you're sort of overplaying and
Yep.
and not really sort of towing the line, the musical line, right? And there's always that. But that musical line can also be stretched a little bit to accommodate what you bring to the thing, because the artist may not realize, you're able to do this, so let's make the arrangement this, or twist it a little bit to make it more exciting, or what have you, And I think I've been lucky because those sort of artists kind of twigged that, okay, I got a really good band here, I can kind of stretch the limits a little bit. And that's not to say with Tommy's thing, it's an instrumental gig, but it goes back to what I was saying before. He's the lead singer. He's playing all the heads, all the melodies, he solos, he's the lead singer. So you got to treat it like that, And that's not to say we didn't, take it out or stretch it a little bit. Man, that band, the acoustic thing in 95, or was it 96? It was 96, was great, but it was the following year where he went back to playing electric and we toured for like 3 months around the country.
Right.
And that band was incredible.
Who else was in the band?
It was Nick Sinclair on bass, who's originally from Adelaide, was living in Melbourne. He's now back in Adelaide again, and I occasionally bump into him and do gigs with him. We had Ashley Crick on keyboards. We had Simon Hosford playing guitar, and we had Ben Northey on saxophone and second keyboards. He would play some keyboard stuff too. Now Ben is now like one of the principal conductors of the MSO. He went into totally different direction after we finished all that stuff, and I'm so glad he did. I miss him as a saxophone player. I kind of labelled him as like Australia's version of like David Sanborn.
Yes,
he was that ilk and that sound.
Wow.
He was incredible. He was great. And on top of that, he's just the best guy to be around, and so now he's like conducting. And I've done some gigs with the MSO where he's been on, he's waving the keeping track of everybody in a conducting circumstance, and so he's great because he gets the whole rhythm section thing. He's been in that thing, so when there's a hired rhythm section to play with the orchestra. He knows how to kind of run the show and lets you kind of, sort of dictate it a little bit, Of course, he's the main cat, but I'm looking at him, he's looking at me. I'm thinking, well, who are we following? Oh, I guess we're following each other, And so, but he always used to say, Gerry, just play. I'll make sure that the orchestra follows the rhythm section. That's what I'm here for. I went, great. I've never heard a conductor say that.
It's pretty special.
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, he does that with any rhythm section that he hires or that they hire for the MSO. So I digress a little bit. So that band was the lineup, and we were together for about a year or so, and that was rocking. And we were all young. We were all like in our mid-20s. And so everybody played their butts off on that gig. And I've got some great sort of desk recordings that I've got at home. I should really maybe upload some of that stuff at some stage. It's really, really good. That'd be
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I'm really proud of that stuff. And so so in awe of playing with one an idol, someone that you admire. Like Tommy was right up there, big time. So you just gotta tip your hat to what he does and play the tunes.
Yeah,
play the tunes. And I was lucky too because when we joined, he just released an album called "Can't Get Enough," and he predominantly recorded that album in LA. And so the drummer that he always had some great drummers play on his albums. The Journeyman album, which was like a big seller album for him. He had Carlos Vega playing on it. Carlos was one of my absolute heroes. And so he got Carlos to play on that album, and on this new album, on this Can't Get Enough album, he had like I think Tom Breckline played on this recording, and so I had to learn his parts, and it was just an absolute joy, you know. And he had like Nathan East play on it, and Larry plays on it, plays a guest solo on there, and it's you think back to those sort of moments, you kind of go, wouldn't it be great if you're playing, and then all of a sudden, fast forward to 2014, you get asked to play with Larry Carlton. It's like, well, that's nice. That's pretty cool. That was a pinch me moment, mate. I got to tell you, big time. That was so good.
It must have been even more awesome to do it with your friends too.
Yes, yeah, that band was great. When we toured with Larry, it was Phil on keys and Craig Newman on bass. So the way that came about was I'd been doing some sessions and recordings up on the Gold Coast for Louis Sheldon. Now Louis was, one of the sort of premier LA recording session guitar players, part of the Wrecking Crew.
Right.
You probably know that. You've heard his work. I mean, he played on like some of the early Michael Jackson stuff. Last Train to Clarksville, like the guitar solo on Hello, Lionel Richie's Hello.
Yeah,
he lives up on the Gold Coast, and I've been doing some sessions for him, and he produced an album that I played on with Stylus. Your dad will probably know who they are, and so he told me he got a call from Larry saying he's coming out. Is there anyone that he could recommend? And Louis said, yeah, I can.
Wow.
And that was on the back of the Damage stuff.
Right.
Louis had seen all that stuff and said, yeah, I reckon I can give you some numbers. And so Louis rings me and says, would you know of any guys and that could, hang and play? And I went, yeah, I think I can. And we put that band together. It was a no-brainer. And when I said to Louis, I said, I'm going to ask Phil and Craig. He goes, yeah, I thought you would. And that's exactly that's what I told Larry, that you're going to get. And he obviously saw some of the Damage stuff, which is not that much stuff online, actually. There's only a couple of clips of us playing. But I think Larry's reaction to that, Louis had said that, well, if these guys can play this really complicated stuff, they can play my stuff. And some of Larry's tunes is some of it was challenging, but what was great about it was like he was so right into the dynamics of things. Playing super soft and then digging in when we had to. He gave us a lot of space, man. I got to say, he was when he didn't say anything, you knew you're doing the right thing. Because I did ask his sound guy, Rick, and he was also his tour manager. I said, "Oh, is everything okay?" Like Larry hasn't said. He goes, "Man, when he doesn't say anything, everything's fine.
Cool.
You guys are doing a great job." So. I think we had one. He mentioned one thing during like a sound check. Can we do this? And it was like, yeah, sure, no problem. You're the great man, You're the man, Larry. You know. And knowing that he's all of his recordings. He had Jeff Beccaro played on his studio stuff. Yeah. So that was oh my God, So. I felt the pressure, but also I was like, I loved the challenge,
Yes.
And I kind of approached that gig where I kind of made it a mission to not, now this is more like a drummer talk thing, not to really play a lot of rim shots as backbeats, just to hit them flat.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you listen to a lot of all the recordings, the snare hits are so consistent, and they don't sound like rim shots to me. They sound really nice centered hits, And when you're doing sessions, that's kind of like, you kind of agonize over those sort of things. Do I rim shot the whole way through? Because if I fluff one, it's going to stand out, right? But when you don't, when you hit it nice and clean, that's a more consistent sound, isn't it? So I just thought that would be the case. So whenever I did have a moment to kind of rim shot it, it was going to be like an impact statement, and that might have been only during maybe a solo of mine, that I would kind of go for that. But otherwise, kept it really clean, just trying to keep it super clean. And just hearing Larry's tone coming back at me because his amps were right in front of me, and they were kind of like open back amps.
Wow.
And it was pretty surreal, man. I got to tell you, it was the tone. You know, he brought his 335, the one that he'd used in his entire career. And I asked him, I said, is that the one? He said, yeah, 90% of all my recordings, it's that guitar.
Wow.
So I was really cautious of, like, as far as not soaking up, you know, any frequencies that would kind of get in his way. Because the drum kick, snare drums are right in that mid-range, right? So I was just playing my own sort of musical game with that, you know, trying to make everything as smooth as possible, so we don't have to deal with, hey, that snare drum sound, man. You know, you don't want, you know, just the less you kind of hear that stuff from artists, the better. That way, you know, you're kind of doing a good job. You know, and playing heavy. That was the one thing I didn't want to do, was play really heavy on that gig.
Right.
Just really light and just but punchy though. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, and when we dug in. You know, it was good.
It must be so satisfying to have, like, your artistic and, like, professional decisions like that just pay off, I guess, with, like, well, I didn't get any feedback, so I know it was great. Yeah, totally, yeah. Yeah, it's like being validated, really, for just what you think is the right thing, you know. And I think that comes from playing lots too, and playing with a lot of different people, and also playing with musicians that are older than you, because you're never going to hear that from musos who are in the same age bracket as you, or the same, you know, you're coming up in the same age, you know, way. I copped a lot. I was always the youngest guy in any band. I was like the youngest by like at least 10 years. Okay.
You know. Yeah. So I was playing with musos when I was in my, you know, like early 20s, playing with much more, you know, seasoned, experienced musos, bass players, you know, guitar players, horn sections. You know, horn players are great, man, because, you know, they can tell you, they don't mince any words, you know, because if you're a young cat, they know you're the young guy, and you maybe haven't been told some of this stuff, so they're not afraid to kind of pull you aside. You know, I was never publicly humiliated on the stand. I was always like, hey, Jer, you kind of just lay off a bit on this sort of stuff, and that sort of advice is so valuable to hear it, and to hear it from these guys that were doing sessions all the time, doing TV work, you know, and so it was like, yep, okay, yeah, the lesson learned, yes, and keep that in the, you know, in the bank, so to speak, you know, so you become more musically aware of what not to do. It's what not to do. It's important. It's not what you do. It's not what not to do. You know, don't, you know, playing loud in a soft situation, those sort of things, and being sympathetic to what the environment is around you, i.e., like, you know, a cavernous hall, and you're smacking the hell out of those drums. No one's gonna like you, you know. So you try to kind of just back off a little bit and just, you know, let the drums do the work. It's not like a hey, look at me moment sort of thing. So just be musical about it. And I still wrestle with those sort of things today. You know, because, you know, you go and do a gig and you walk in the room and you go, oh man, you know, you could sneeze and it'd be the loudest thing in the room, you know.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, well, how's a snare drum hit going to work, you know? So you just kind of contain that primal urge to play hard or play your normal game. Just back off the juice a little bit. And I think you'll make more friends that way too. And of course, these days, you know, everyone's using in-ears and things like that, so there's less stuff coming off from stage. Especially when, you know, there's no guitar amps or bass amps blaring off stage. It's now just a drum kit, you know. And so even in those sort of circumstances, you know, you just got to kind of watch what's the dynamics in the room, and, you know, give the sound guy at least a fighting chance of putting you in the mix, so to speak, you know. But yeah, you learn all those things as you're coming up, I think.
That's so great that you had that given to you in like such a productive way.
Yes.
Like not the public humiliation on the stand,
totally.
but the, you know, the backstage chat or whatever.
Totally, man.
Like, and it's put you in great stead, clearly.
I try and pass on that information or that to students and, you know, other young musos, you know, bass players, guitar players that I get a chance to jam with, you know. But they seem to be more in tune with that stuff than I was.
Right.
You know, so I don't, you know, I get to, like, I've been playing with some younger cats and they seem to be more switched on with that. So I'm thinking that maybe because, you know, of their musical upbringing and their education and maybe the people that they've gone and seen and heard, that they've twigged on that, you know. So I'm less likely to kind of say, hey, man, you know, you're the loudest cat on the stage, you know, sort of vibe. So so I don't kind of, I really haven't found myself doing that a lot for the younger cats. Mm-hmm. So I think it's more, maybe it's being taught more. I mean, I certainly talk about it with drum students when I, you know, like, be aware of your musical surroundings. It's not just you on stage. You know, as much as you want to chop out and play that new lick that you've learned off Instagram and, you know, it goes far more deeper than that. And sometimes you could be exposed for your musical immaturity, you know, and you become, and by not doing that, you know, you're doing the right thing. I think that's what's missing a lot. I think, and I try and teach drummers, I say, you got to think, you got to listen to outside of what you're playing, and what's the bigger picture here. Mm-hmm. You know, given the musical genre, I mean, if you're playing like in a jazzy sort of vibe, you know, where you're allowed to take some, you know, a lot of liberties, I guess, but even that can be too much. You know, overplaying and stuff like that, stepping on somebody's toes and things like that. You know, I think in let's say in the jazz context, and I'm using my inverted commas here, there's always a conversation going on, especially between drums and the soloist or vice versa, or whoever's taking the solo. You know, the question answer thing. You know, you've got to be all ears for that stuff, and I think. And that's not just in the jazz thing, but it could be in the rock fusion thing as well. Call and response, that sort of stuff. It's really subtle. That way, the music's really subtle in picking that up. But once you do kind of twig, and it's like, okay, you know, it can be really enlightening, you know, as a drummer, to know that, you know, the soloist is actually listening to some of your phrasing, yes, albeit comping with the left hand, or, you know, whatever it is you're going for, mm-hmm. you know. And I think that's really, really important to kind of unleash that, you know, especially in rehearsal time, you know, when you're jamming. Mm-hmm. That's the best time to do it. You take risks there and see what flies and see what sticks, you know, and that's where when you start opening your ears to what's really going on around you musically, you know. Yeah.
Did you always think that you would have this career that was extremely varied in terms of like the styles and amount of work that you did? Because I don't know, I've listened to some other interviews you've done, and like you've got quite an eclectic sort of like history of listening to music, and your career's maintained like a lot of different styles of playing. Yeah. And, you know, like you're one of Australia's most in-demand session guys for a reason. And it's quite interesting, though, to me that like drummers sort of tend to go in a couple of ways of really narrowing in or really opening up.
That's what I do, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that either, right? Did I envision it being this sort of diverse? Yes and no, because I did love growing up listening to a whole bunch of different styles of music. You know, I was exposed to that at home. You know, my father was a a professional musician all his life, and so we were exposed to a whole lot of different styles at home, like Latin, classical, sort of a lot of piano driven music, sort of stuff, and because my father was a pianist, and I always loved rock, loved pop music. And the jazz thing came in because my brother was listening to it, and that my ears pricked up on that, So did I feel it was going to branch out into so many areas? Probably not, And I think I focused from a playing point of view. I really worked on, learning to play good was the main thing. Right, learning to play whatever it was my lesson for that week was, whether it was a selection of, sort of patterns to play and grooves, whether it was, some concepts of like learning, polyrhythmic type rhythms and things like that. Whether it was like learning some Latin rhythms, whether it was like learning some jazz. Well, essentially independence. That's what you're learning when you want to focus on jazz sort of playing. You got to have some sort of independence down, right? And that was the hardest thing,
Absolutely.
Ding, 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 and then hi-hat on 2 and 4, then reading, syncopation studies on the bass drum and on the snare drum, and then, alternating and whatever. That's hard when you're 15, 16 years old, and all you want to do is like, kind of rock out, But it was that discipline that my teacher gave me, who incidentally was Peter Blick, and I had another teacher early. My learnings was Ray Raphael, and both of those cats were instrumental in what I do today. Seriously, and Peter was really hardcore teacher. Like, if I didn't have it down each week, you got to go home, practice it, come back and again next week, have it down, and that forces you to get it right. So stylistically, each one of those sort of genres, I was getting better and better as the years went on, and obviously when you go and see gigs like you did, I went and saw gigs too, and I got to see, in any given time during that time I was coming up, Virgil was playing in town, David Jones was playing in town, Darren Ferrugia was playing in town, Graham Morgan was playing in town, Ronnie Sandilands was playing in town. You go and see these guys, these players play. And I'm sure I've left out a whole bunch of other musos too. And so you get to see. And the great thing was, I used to go and see my teacher play. He was in a great band called WJAZ, and they had a residency every Saturday night at the Limerick Arms Hotel in South Melbourne.
Okay.
Every Saturday night.
Wow.
So when I turned 18, that was one of the first gigs I went and saw. And I used to go religiously, I was 18, man. I wasn't gigging yet. I wasn't working every weekend, And so I used to go and see and hear exactly what he was preaching. He was putting it into practice.
Yes.
That's when like, that's what drove it home for me. So, and it got me it put me in a good space to then, if I was playing in a band that wanted to play this genre or that genre, I kind of had something to play. I had something to offer. You know what I mean? I think that's what got me in a good shape there. I mean, I'm not known as a jazz player, and I really don't care for, if I am, I'm not. But I love, that ensemble thing, the acoustic ensemble. Nothing satisfies me more than putting up a flat ride and, some sort of dry cymbal and tuning my drums really high and all that, and playing that way, getting out of the pop thing or the rock thing and try and play as, what that genre needs, So until this day, and still till this day, I'm still working on that aspect where I can try and switch off and go, what? And this is the approach I need to take for this thing. To the extent where, okay, tune my drums a bit higher. I sit a bit higher when I'm playing like swing stuff, jazz stuff. The rock and pop stuff, I sit a little bit lower. Don't ask me why. It just seems to kind of, for me, I don't know, just feels comfortable that way. Which could be really bad on my back, but but I haven't had any problems, touch wood, you know, that stuff hasn't really sort of played any problems, you know. So I still think about that sort of stuff till this day. Genre driven, okay, play it this way, use these chops, use these ideas, really interplay more, listen more. And that's not to say that when you're doing like pop stuff, you've got to listen just as hard, you know, I think anyway. Because when you kind of do a gig that's, let's say you would normally, you know, phone it in. When you start deciding to phone it in, I think it's time to maybe give up the gig, you know, or you know, I try and avoid that as much as I can, just like, you know, and just try and find something within that gig to kind of spark it up a little bit.
Yes.
You know. But going back to I know I've kind of gone off the beaten track here, Luke, but it's like I did feel that I was being asked to do different things at a younger age, and I thought it was great, you know, to have that diversity, to be asked to do different things. I mean, you know, TV work was one of them. That's a whole different, you know, sort of headspace right there.
Yeah.
You know, you rehearse, and then, you know, it's most of the stuff I've done has been live to air, so there's no room for messing up, you know. So that's a different stress level. You know, whenever we do carols every year, you know, Craig Newman and I call it, you know, we're back in the stress pit. You know, and so I go, yep, but we've done it for so long. Does it get any easier? We both go, no, not really. There's still some things that will always will be thrown at us last minute changes. You know, singers not coming in at the right spot, throwing arrangements out the window, and it's happened, man. And we've, as a rhythm section, we've managed to kind of salvage those moments, you know. And there's been a few, but you'd never know unless you had the chart in front of you and following the band and going, oh, they really screwed up that bit and da-da-da. You know, you just wouldn't know unless it was a real blatant mistake. You know, you never know. It's gone down. But all those experiences leading to, you know, playing in those situations certainly does help you be as a flexible musician, you know, and being a diplomat.
Yes.
You know, and being, you know, the art of diplomacy is what every young player should learn. You know, being asked to do something that you kind of, I don't know, just do it. Because the bigger picture is that the arranger wants it that way, or the conductor's hearing it that way. So don't argue, accommodate, do it, and you'll be loved by everyone.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I'm really fascinated by you saying, like, when you're doing the TV, like, live to air gigs, that there's so much, like, pressure.
Yeah.
But what's the difference, or, like, what is it about it that's making that pressure, as opposed to, like, you know, when you're doing a gig to 10,000 or more people in a stadium? Like, what is it about the TV that makes it the pressure? Yeah,
well, it's live TV. So, and in this day and age where as soon as you play it, it's up on social media forever.
Yes.
Okay. It's up. That's it. You get one crack at it, and you know, and then it's up there, right? That to me, that's the pressure we're talking about. You know, I still wrestle with that, but part of me just goes, whatever. It's what we do is what we do, and that's what we're going to give them. And you know, you do your best you can. You try and, you know, play in the pocket. You know, it's all revealing. You know, we don't get much time to rehearse each number with the artists. You know, we get a, you know, it's like one day a full rehearsal with each artist. Well, actually, those that actually rock up, right? And then the next day is another run through with the artists with camera run through. So you might get to run that tune again at least once maybe twice.
Mm-hmm.
So in total, it's 3 times. And then the next time you see it and play it is live to air, which is the following. So it's not, and you got like 30 odd numbers, more than that, I think. Yeah. And that's including that's not including play-ons and play-offs and what have you. So, I remember one year, a chart got changed so many times. I gave up making notes, and I just said to John Foreman, I said, John, my chart looks like a train wreck with all these changes. I said, I got no idea what's going on. Can you just yell out when we're going to the end? Because he could talk to us via his mic, and he did. He did, yeah, because it just got so confusing. That was a while ago when that happened. I just gave up. With my eraser, my pencil, went scrubbing out bars. Oh, now those bars are back in. Well, I've already, okay, let's do it. And it was just arrows going everywhere. The roadmap became just unreadable, and it's not just me. I know, I could probably speak on Phil's behalf. Phil would have a chart, would be 10 pages long,
mm-hmm.
but someone's giving him the whole range, but sort of a vibe of it, and it's like he's looking at it just going, oh, and I remember he turned the chart to John and said, "Can you read this?" And John's looked at it and gone, "Nah." So Phil would take it home and make a readable version of it, and I would sometimes do that with my charts, so that's where the pressure things come from. You sometimes, like having a chart which is really easy to read as far as the layout,
mm-hmm.
right? That's super important on those sort of play situations where you're not going to rehearse it up 10 times, so you get to know the chart properly. That's when you really got to rely on your sight reading. But if the chart's not written well, makes it really, really hard. So you're sweating on it. And I've had moments like that, man. It's like, I remember we read down a chart at rehearsal, and it was like a groove, like. Now you think that would be written in 4/4, right?
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it was written in cut time.
Oh.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and so all those sort of bass drums that feel like they're 16th notes are now written as 8th notes.
Ooh.
And so everything's going by, double quick.
Yes.
Right? And it dawned on me, I go, oh, this guy's getting paid by the bar. It's like, this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? So that's what we're talking about. So, that's where the pressure, you kind of and then, you're trying to read it down at the first rehearsal and you're making mistakes.
Yeah.
And so, but then we'd play another chart, which is beautifully written out, and the whole band nails it. When a chart's not written out great, when some of the horn, start splattering this, and when the rhythm section's not together,
mm-hmm.
What have you, So that's what we're talking about, that pressure, and getting rid of that pressure means having really good arrangements, and luckily we do have some great arrangers, but it's sometimes it's that moment of doubt. You're looking at the chart going, oh, I don't know, man. That even by looking at it, you say, can I play it? And you run it down and go, no, that's wrong. Okay. And just even for me, it's really funny, Luke, stems up and stems down.
Yes.
Now, for me, I like seeing hi-hats and ride cymbals stems up.
Yeah.
Right? Kick and snares down.
So much easier to read.
Yeah. When it's all lined up, down, Ooh. it's like a matrix for me, man. I can't. Yeah. I just because I was never I never grew up reading it that way. My
mm-hmm.
drum teacher would write out the way we just.
Yep. Yeah. Same.
Man, I got to get my eraser out and just making modifications.
Mm-hmm.
And then drum fills would be a drum fill written out as however, it stems up, I would imagine, sort of vibe. But that would make it even harder. Yeah. You look and just go, oh, here we go, stems down. Oh,
mm-hmm.
man,
Yep.
All right. And sometimes you forget to put that chart aside and go, well, I'm going to work on it, just make it look better.
Yes.
And then you forget. It comes to the live tune. You go, I forgot. Let me get through this thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I've never done any like pro theatre shows, but I did a bunch of like community theatre
Great.
and like mid-level stuff when I was at uni. And
Awesome.
like, yeah, the drum charts is a nightmare to sight read because of that. Like, the one that would get me all the time is when it's not formatted for like 4 or 8 bars to a line.
Yeah, you got like 7 bars and there's an 8th bar there, or 5 bars, and terrible.
And you lose it so quickly because it's like, is that an 8 bar phrase or is it a 9 bar?
That's right. Yeah, and the other one I really is a pet peeve. When you're doing Sibelius does this a lot, right? Puts the numbers on top. Like if you do 4 bars and there's a letter, the number 4, right?
Yes.
But then sometimes that 4 is on the 5th bar. Yeah. Now, I know what 4 bars feels like, right? So if I've kind of looked away for a split second knowing, I got 4 bars to play, then I got to look back and, that's where my 4th bar is, but it's actually my 5th bar. Yeah. Those sort of, those sort of writing errors don't do you any favors,
Mm-hmm.
So again, correct.
Yeah.
Get rid of, get the white out, put it on there.
Yep.
And I think sometimes it's the, like really good arrangers understand that. I've had some great discussions with a few arrangers and they get it, and sometimes they might even ring me up and go, Gerry, how would you like to see this on the page?
Good.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about it, and because it'd be like a brush thing or something like that. How would you want to? I said, oh man, just give me slash marks.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that you want me to play, hit an accent or something like that needs to be, sort of punctuated, just write it in. I'll play it, and then I'll make a decision whether how hard or how loud it's got to be in relation to the band or what have you.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of common sense stuff, isn't it, Luke?
But it's so instrument specific that I guess it's like, if you or I were to try and write something in tenor clef for totally. No idea.
Yeah.
But
that's right. No idea.
To the string player, it's like, of course I would articulate it in this way and it would be written like this, and even though it's an octave down, I'm going to do it like this because of X, Y, and Z on the instrument.
Yeah.
And then to you and I, it's like, well, doesn't it make sense to just let me play time and then give me the accents?
That's right.
But they're like, I thought it was better to give you that drum part with everything in a line.
Everything in the thing. It's like, no, not really. Because when it's a reading gig, sometimes, like to me, that's just too much information that I would normally play naturally anyway.
Yeah.
Like you'd add some ghost notes or, some flavour on the hi-hats, keeping it simple for, really good musicians, you're going to get a better result. When there's a lot of information on the chart, sometimes I just back off and go, and then you try and play it, and it's like, the moment's gone.
Yeah.
You've fluffed it, So that's those sort of things. We've had situations where someone's written out like a snare drummy type thing, and I got to take some of that stuff home and learn it, but then I find out it's when I listen to the whole range, it's like that's not really. You've written out what is supposedly an ad lib type snare drum thing. You know what I mean? And someone's trying to give you the ad lib. How about you just write ad lib military snare, or just give me 1 bar?
Yes,
that's the pattern we play. Rather than the 2 bar thing, and then what they do is 2 bar slash marks, 2 bar slash marks. It's like, well, I'm still reading, trying to get to know this thing here, this is like confessions of of what goes on,
It's nice though.
It is, yeah, totally.
Cathartic.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure there's, I'm happy to be corrected on this, but, sometimes on these sort of pressure gigs, that's what we're talking about. These sort of, why does it become stressful is because you're confronted with things like this. It kind of just, your heart stops a little bit and go, okay, well, just give me a second to decipher this information that you're trying to get me to play. And you kind of go, okay, well, this makes sense now. Okay, I get it now. All right. Is it something that I would play? Probably not. Let me just make a little variation of that, But Lord, again, you got to use your ears and like figure out, is that what is being doubled up by, who knows, the percussionist, which is probably not. They've probably got their, hands full hitting sleigh bells or something like that,
Yep.
I don't know, or hitting timpanis, and sometimes I get doubled up on that, like I'm playing floor tom stuff and the percussion player's playing timpani stuff, thinking, well, that's obviously, wouldn't it be more effective if I just play a cymbal roll while they're doing a timp roll? And it's those sort of questions that I immediately put my hand up to the musical director and go, can we do I'm doubling up on what they're doing. Does that sound good to you? Or should I just play cymbals or something like that? So when you offer a solution, that's always a good thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, it sounds bad. But that's just being arrogant. It's like, well, validated by not saying that it sounds bad, just saying, oh, there's something really interesting happening at bar such and such. Can I maybe do this? Would that make it sound better? Would that give it more space? Obviously those sort of things don't happen in in a rock context, or when you're playing in a 5-piece band or a quartet. You don't have to contend with any of that stuff, man. Just do your thing.
Yeah.
Just do your thing and make it groove, make it rock, whatever it is you're playing, But yeah, it's that pressure thing of going, knowing that your playing is going to be, that's it. That's going to be set in stone, and people can access it whenever they want and pick the bones out of it.
Yeah.
Boy. Yeah. I try not to think about it anymore. I just go, as long as I'm locking in there with the rhythm section, I know that I'm at the mercy of what the mix sounds like. Half the time, the hi-hats aren't in there or the rides in there, and is what it is. It's live TV. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. It's live TV, man. So I tend to, and when someone, here's another one too, look, another good one. When I see brushes on a chart, I go, they're not going to be heard. It's like, unless I tell the audio engineer I go, hey, I'm playing brushes in this one.
Yes.
So I'll be like stirring the soup, and then they gain it up. They actually know that song, there's brushes, and then I get to hear it in the mix. But if it doesn't get told to them, or the message doesn't get down the line, a lot of that stuff gets missed. So the arrangement side of things, gets, there's things missing in the arrangement that would normally should be there. And that's always a lot of fun listening back. I should actually record my headphone mix one year and, that
would be really interesting.
Give people, because there's a lot of stuff that goes down that we all hear, that I think gets lost on air. The articulation of things, a lot of our, but of course my it's a drum heavy mix, bass heavy mix, keyboards heavy, guitar, some horns, some percussion, some strings. So it'd be, and John Foreman talking to you between the breaks. That's always funny. He's funny.
I bet.
He's great. Yeah, he's really cool.
We've been playing this game on the podcast where I get each guest to ask a question of the next guest.
Oh.
But because they don't know who they are,
right,
it leads to some sometimes interesting questions. So I've got a question for you from drummer Danny Fisher.
Danny Fisher, right, yeah.
Those headphones just next to you.
Okay.
If you chuck them on, we'll play it like a radio show.
Oh my God. Okay. These are brand new, man.
Pretty much.
Mine are worn out. Mine's just totally. Anyway.
There's a few terribly worn out ones in the next room.
I bet there are.
And these are the nice ones for the guests.
These are fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Hit me, Danny.
My question would be, how do you stay motivated and driven to stay on the path that you're on?
It's a great question. Thanks, Danny. Stay motivated and driven to stay on the path that I'm on. Yeah. I still practice a lot whenever I can.
Mm.
So what made it... That keeps me driven and motivated when I sit back and practice. But to get into that practice room, there's some other factors that gets me in there. Listening to other drummers, my heroes. I can give a perfect example of just recently. Dave Weckl was in town. I got to see him play a couple nights in a row, and there's your motivation right there. And I remember I saw him on a Wednesday night. The Thursday morning, I'm teaching, and my first student didn't rock up at 9:30, so I just start playing. And it's amazing when you see someone like Dave in the flesh. Like here, you said the same thing about seeing Damage. It's a whole different experience, right? So watching someone play in the flesh, how much that inspires you to get up on the kit and play, and how much that what you've heard that previous night filters through to your own playing somewhat, and that motivated me to kind of try some new things, So
cool.
yeah. So obviously listening to my heroes motivates me and keeps me, because I always think that that's always the benchmark. Those guys, your Vinnies, your Daves, Jeff Beccaro, Carlos Vega we spoke about, Dennis Chambers, go back, Alvin Jones, Peter Erskine. I mean, I could name so many drummers that I listen to for motivation, and that's what keeps me on the path of like trying to stay motivated, focused, and trying to play better. Playing better skill-wise, fine-tune things. I mean, watching Dave play recently, and obviously he's got a vast array of YouTube clips and his school that you can access watching him play. We didn't have that when he came out. Like, we were lucky to get him on a Chick Corea video or something like that, and obviously heaps of recordings. But it's that watching thing that you kind of go, oh, he did it that way, or they play it that way, And so YouTube to me is a real great resource of finding something, and that motivates me. Going, I want to go in the practice room now and work on that. I did that with like an Alvin Jones lick. Peter Erskine did this, like a YouTube clip of him talking about Alvin Jones.
Okay.
And he breaks down this lick, which is really a phrase, that Alvin would do a lot. And Erskine breaks it down, so I wrote it out. And I went straight into my practice room, and a couple of hours later, I've written out a whole bunch of other sort of variations upon that. And that filters into my playing, that like in a jazz sort of setting, to try and channel Alvin Jones type, phrases and things like that. So that keeps me motivated. That stuff. And I love it too. Because I may not even use it on a gig. I just love the fact that I'm working on something that's different that I haven't worked on before.
Yes.
And I know eventually it'll sip out, but I take a lot of joy in going into my room and just locking the door, practicing stuff that I haven't played before slowly, and try and be as methodical as possible, because I was never like that. You get frustrated, I'm working on things. And it's like, now that I'm old, it's like, I realize it just takes time, and I try and put that into with students and what have you, relax. It just takes time. If you love what you're doing, do it really slowly. Tomorrow will be easier. The next day will be easier. And then they see the bigger picture, So, hope that answers the question, Danny.
Yeah. It's great.
Thanks, Danny. Mr. Fisher, who I love his playing too, man. He's a fabulous drummer.
He had some lovely things to say about you too.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's nice, man. No, yeah. Danny's just, I've seen him play a few times, and it's like, and more often also on, social media, someone puts something up and he's up there playing with Ben Robinson playing, bass, and can't remember some certain piano players and things like that. And yeah, Danny's like that. He's that one guy you will go to for if you want a jazz language. He's the cat.
Yeah.
He's the cat, you know. So I steal from those guys, you know what I mean? You just steal and just work on certain aspects of playing. And I know when Danny's been at like the Paris Cat, because the next day, like the next night, I might be on a gig, and he sits really high, his snares angled away, you know, cymbals. And like I'm thinking, it's just Danny's been here. I know, I just know, you know. And I try and sit in that height, and it's like, whoa, man, it's like I'm getting a nosebleed up here. But I took, you know, that's what I was talking about before, like sitting high for that stuff. You know, I kind of, is there something in this? You know, should I be sitting a little bit higher? You know, and actually forces you to play lighter too. I found.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, because everything's below you. You know what I mean? So you got these low movements, short movements that you can kind of, you know, almost like you're dealing cards, right? Yeah. Everything's low. If you got your tom kind of almost parallel to your snare drum, well, it's just basically one step, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? And if it's lower, it's like, it's easier, you know, somewhat. But you still got to play, you know, at a certain dynamic. But, you know, the hardest thing I always wrestle with, Luke, is playing really as intense as possible, but at a low volume. That's the hardest thing. Like
Absolutely.
you execute your chops, but really, and that's what makes it intense, right? But play as soft as possible. I got to rein it in sometimes. Brutal. Yeah, I got to rein it in. Make sure it's too loud. Even stick height, lower. Constantly telling myself that during those sort of types of gigs. You know, but you know, if I'm playing with Braithwaite, something like that, it's like. Gloves are off, mate, you know. Sit a little bit lower, you know, the drums are bigger cymbals, you know, off we go.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to have the two, I guess, like, because it just brings out like the best of both.
I love it, man. It's great, you know, and it's a good balance for me. I love that. And I was talking about that, we're talking about the whole diversity thing, you know. You know, like doing Daryl's gig, that requires this way of playing, you know, and he wants it to be pretty much the same every night. You know, sometimes I'll surprise him a little bit, you know, but it's got to be the same every night. Makes him comfortable. Great. So when it comes to playing something a little bit more adventurous, it's like the shackles have been taken off.
Yes.
You know, you're allowed to express yourself. Carefully, though, you know, without, again, you know, stepping on people's toes and being that loud, obnoxious drummer, you know. So, especially when the bass player is not my upright bass player, or, you know, those sort of playing situations, you know. And I just find that stuff challenging too. And not having to wear earplugs when I'm playing that music. Just being open, not playing loud, you know. Stuffing things in my ears and, like, you know, to avoid that loudness of the rock thing, just to keep it under control. But when you're playing sort of soft, delicate music, but it can be intense. It's like, Andy Gander to me is one of those guys that can do that really, really well. I don't know if you know of Andrew at all.
No.
Oh my God, Andrew Gander is one of the David Jones for that matter too.
Yes,
those cats. You know,
is he the same generation as Jones?
Yeah, probably. I think so. Yeah,
okay.
David and Andy probably came up the same way. Maybe Andy's a little bit younger than David, but those guys possess that this internal quality of being able to play so, like, you know, like an amount of notes that's going on. It makes it intense, but it's not cluttering anything. They're able to sort of make their statement within the music, you know, and to me that's really, really hard to do, you know, and still create space and yet having a conversation with somebody, you know, musically. And Andy's like, the times I've seen Andy play, and he's great. Some of his social media posts have been incredible. You know, you can clearly hear that, but you can see it too. The strokes are really low, and you know, But yeah, I've also seen him kind of really kind of dig in too. It's like he's got that down, as I think any musician should have down. Not just to play at that one thing, because you'll find out as you get older, you're going to want to have to kind of just, take care of yourself a little bit, hands and things like that. And, and I want to be able to play, till I can't play anymore, really. 70s, 80s, I don't know, so we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of way of just thinking about things, I'm hoping to carry it on as much as I can, So, yeah, that's all good.
Well, what question would you like to ask our next guest?
That's a good one. This would be pretty generic too, which would be good. Who are your major influences and why? Saying good luck.
Well, this hour's gone past so fast.
It's an hour?
Yeah.
You're kidding.
I know.
Man.
And I was going to ask you about like the electronic drums thing. And
I don't care.
Do you have enough time for...
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's do this. I'm going to ask you the 5 quick answer questions that end the episode.
Okay.
And then I'll ask you about the electronic thing.
Great.
Because then
it's all complete.
Yeah.
For now.
All right, so what's your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
How about currently or ever? Or like in the past?
Yeah, let's take ever.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
We've had a few guests say ones that are closed.
Yeah,
so,
have they?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
good. Yeah, because there's only a handful of venues in Melbourne now, man. But back in the day, there was heaps. Grain Store, back in the mid-90s, was one of my favourite places to play. I've got a name too.
Sure. And
Spencer's Live.
Mm-hmm.
That was still one of my favourite places to play in.
Well, we've spoken about Spencer's. What was this Grain Store like?
Grain Store was on. It's still there. It's on King Street.
Mm-hmm.
It was during the early '80s up until the mid '90s or close to the late '90s. Was I considered to be Melbourne's mecca. Like there was always great music going on. So during the week there'd be fusion bands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays were cover bands.
Mm-hmm.
But in those cover bands were all like the session guys in Melbourne doing gigs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I landed a gig there filling in. It's amazing how these things fall in your lap. Virgil had a gig there 2 nights a week with a band called Andrew Grant and the Three Little Pigs. And in that band was Verge, was Jack Jones, Roger McLaughlin on bass, and Andy Grant on vocals. And I just started doing some gigs with Roger. Now, Roger at the time was doing a lot of TV work and sessions, and I can't remember how that came about, how I started playing with Rog. So anyway, Verge and Jack... Verge had to go away and do some drum clinics.
Mm-hmm.
And they needed someone to fill in, and Roger just threw my name in the ring, and so I filled in for Verge a couple of times in that gig. And then around that time, Virgil and Jack Jones had a band called Southern Sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they went on the road, I came in, and a young Simon Hosford, he was probably 18 at the time. I was 22, going on 23. We stepped in and we kept that gig going for about 6 months or something like that. So that's the Grain Store was a great venue for that.
Cool.
Like On the Verge played there a lot. Darren Fruger's band called Venice Beach played there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there were great funk bands like Network.
Yeah.
Man, they were great. You would just see, and then also like there'd be duos or solo acts in the middle bar with the quiet area of the nightclub because it was downstairs and upstairs. 2 bands would be going at the same time. And
wow.
Especially on the Friday and Saturday night. It was incredible, And everybody used to go and hang out there. Even other musos would come and hang after their gig. You know, so it was a great environment. The club's still there. It became a girly bar, you know, and now that's moved on, and now the building is just there at the moment, down at the bottom end of King Street. That whole King Street, there was about 4 venues.
Wow.
You could play in. There was a grain store. Next door was Inflations. Up the road was the Kilkenny Inn. And I think there was another one too. Lazar's was another place. Yeah, that whole precinct used to be a, disco or nightclub, and bands playing there.
Wow.
It was fantastic. And I kind of caught the tail end of that, you know. So those 2 venues, Grain Store, Spencer's Live.
What would be your dream venue to play at?
I don't know. Maybe somewhere overseas would be good. Like, you know, wouldn't it be great to play in, Carnegie Hall or something like that? One of those sort of landmark American, New York, the Lincoln Center or something like that. You know, that would be really cool. I had the good fortune of playing at Birdland in New York.
Oh, cool.
You know, 2 nights in a row there. And that was great. That was really fantastic. That was great fun. But yeah, I think a big, beautiful room like Carnegie Hall would be, man, you know, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Pretty cool, I think.
I think it'd be cool. You know, I'm just trying to think of any other, maybe in Australia. I'll tell you what was really cool. Playing the Opera House is really cool. That's really nice. That's a good sounding room. I've been lucky enough to play in most of the major sort of concert halls around Australia. Perth is a good one. Brisbane, the QPAC is great. Obviously, Hamer Hall here is wonderful. Adelaide, what's the version of the Arts Centre? That's really nice. You know, I think it's gotten better. Those big rooms have gotten better where they can accommodate electric music.
Yep.
You know, where you can play with an orchestra and there's some definition with the drum kit and PAs and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten a lot better as the technology has improved, you know, close miking, a violin section or something like that to make it sound. So, limiting feedbacks and things like that. And obviously putting drum kits in what I call fish bowls, the Perspex glass, you know. So I think those bigger venues are always special to play in. Yeah.
I guess too, like the acoustic treatment of them is changing. Like Hamer Hall, like
it's
the
so
new
much,
version, like
it's so much better than what it used to be.
Yeah.
It was, that still needs a bit of work sometimes. I think depending on the act that's in there, it's a tricky one.
It's so hard when you're trying to like make it work for so many different things, right?
Totally,
like,
absolutely.
Traditionally, if you're building just like an orchestra's concert hall, it's so simple.
Yeah,
it's hard, but it's like it's one purpose.
Well, it's what it's designed for is for acoustic music.
Yeah.
The Melbourne Recital Centre's a bit like that.
Yes.
You know, I've heard some gigs in there, volume wise. Not much coming off stage, but which is great, which leaves a lot of room to be put into the PA, and it's wonderful. You know. And so those rooms are primarily you got to figure out what are they designed for. You know, if it's for electric music, well, it's got to be treated a certain way. If it's for acoustic music, well, it's going to be really wide open, isn't it? You know, they want that sort of projection or reflection or whatever it is they want or they need. You know, but there's no way around it these days, man. Yeah, everything's being mic'd up, everything's being amplified, you know. So depending, if you're a bluegrass band that plays in a hall, traditionally those guys play in front of one microphone. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Set to a figure 8 or something like that.
Yep.
Or Omni.
Yeah.
And they step in when someone's taking a solo. They step, traditionally that's what it is. But I mean, even that stuff's been, modified these days. I see it on clips, and what have you, acoustic music being treated a different way, a more modern way, But then that opens up Depends on how good your sound guy is and how musical they are in interpreting what you're doing up there. And you're still at the mercy of whoever's at the knobs, mate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Big time. You know. Anyway, yeah. Hope that answered your question. Couple venues.
What is your coffee order?
Easy. Long macchiato with 1 sugar.
What's your favourite place to get food after a gig in Melbourne?
Wow. I will answer that. These days, I don't kind of eat that much after a gig. I just go straight home. So back in the day, it was probably Macca's or something like that, you know, or one of the souvlaki places down on where was it? Down? Oh, is it Ulysses down on High Street? Northcote was one place we used to hang out. Oh no! Sorry, I do remember. After a gig, we used to go down to Chappelli's on Toorak Road.
Oh.
I think it's still there. And it's a 24-hour joint.
Okay.
Yeah. So whenever we finish a gig, that's right, we'd go there and we'd eat big. Oh, the good old days. We didn't have to worry about anything really. Yeah, man, Chappelli's. Yeah, we had some good times there. It was great, you know. And that joint, or Topel's Pizza on Fitzroy Street, I think that's still there. Yeah. It was either those two. But Chappelle's was great. Chappelle's was great because you could always get a car park on Toorak Road back in those days at 3 a.m. It was all good, man.
All right, final question of the quick five. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Just relax. I would have told myself just to relax a little bit more. I know this is me talking to myself, to my younger self. I know you're really passionate about what you do and you want it to be perfect, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but just relax on all that sort of stuff, because the end picture is always going to be good. It's going to be okay, right? So, and be patient, relax. It'll get done. That's what I've learned as I've gotten older. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, I was like, can we do it? Why can't we do it now? And I'd get a bit sort of tense about it, I'm still a bit like that now, but those sort of things, most things that I want to get done straight away, I can do them myself, sound-wise, and things like that. Via a mixer or whatever, But back in the day, that was always hard, especially in those those pressure situations, I can't hear this, can't hear that. Like, before we had sort of aviums in front of us where we can dial things in, Mm-hmm. So I would tell my younger self just to chill out a little bit more, man. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, I should say for the listeners, you're talking about like a fallback situation and stuff.
Yeah. Which but also life in general too, Yep. I did all, I kind of did all the stuff that I wanted to do when I was younger, as far as, I practiced, I practice hard, still do whenever I can. I would go out and see gigs, so that's not something that I would tell my younger self to do, because I did all that. Went and checked out gigs. I listened to a lot of music, still do. None of that changes. So I kind of did all the things that my teachers kind of told me to do. Mm-hmm. But I was always very passionate about stuff, and that was sometimes my undoing, my Greek red hot bloodness, like when you're European, man, it's like that sort of thing. Us European a bit, we can be like that, passionate about things, and fly off the handle, and I'm not so much that anymore. Still do it sometimes. when stuff goes down, which I know is like, come on, man, that's not cool. This is not cool. Whatever situation it is, But I do it now where I'm kind of this calm and just say, it's not cool. You know, or do you like what's going on? I always pose it as a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, like, would you like this happen to you if you were in my situation? And if the answer is no, I go, well, you kind of answered the question, really. So let's fix it. Let's get it done. It's not quite right yet.
Yeah.
You know. So that's the advice I would give just my younger self. Yeah.
Well, what was it like doing the DWE thing? So I saw you were, posting some stuff,
Yep.
and I saw a couple of them live, and then when I was looking through prepping for this, I was
Yep.
like, oh, it actually does a little bit more than what I'd just seen.
Man.
It looked like you were doing like a whole
Presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a whole spiel on the kit. Yeah. It was great. In my previous sort of electronic life, I used to be a Roland clinician.
Oh,
From
right.
about 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, up to around, those years I was heavily involved in doing demos for Roland.
Oh, wow.
With stuff that eventuated, firstly began doing these Roland clinic tours in Asia. And it was like we would demo, this was before the V drums came out. There was a kit called the TD something or other. So the one that came out with the V drums was the TD10, first of the mesh heads with the module, with the COSM technology and all that sort of stuff. And that was a breakthrough. That stuff was breakthrough sort of stuff from a drumming point of view. So I used to demo this other kit that was more like a practice pad kit. The module was really, really small, really hard to read. But I used to demo it anyway. And then when the V drums came out, I was like the guy who launched it. We launched it in Taiwan, I remember, was the first place in Asia. And then we would go to the Philippines. And then we would go to, we launched it in, just to remember, Indonesia. We launched it in, might have been Vietnam too. Yeah.
Huh.
So that was in the mid-90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
97. And then we launched it in Melbourne, 97, 98. And so I had that history.
Wow.
So when DW got taken over by Roland, which I suspect was purely on the premise that they knew that DW had developed this electronic drum kit, which is totally wireless.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So I always thought it was a strange acquisition. I'm thinking, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And then later I find out that DW got an electronic drum kit. Yeah, that's the reason why.
Wow.
So that's how that came about. So our distributor, our DW guy in Melbourne, Australia, really, asked me if I was interested in doing the thing, knowing that I had this Roland history back in the day. And I said, sure. And then he was sending me sort of YouTube clips of the kit, and I checked it out, and I was like, wow, man, it's like totally wireless, no cables, no nothing. And when I eventually kind of got the kit and, sort of learned the software and the sounds, the samples, oh my God, it was incredible. I just couldn't believe the sound of this stuff. And it was like the gap that I had between, like, the Roland stuff had been, that was in early 2000s I finished. It's been another 20 years or so since I really kind of got my head into playing electronic drums again. Mind you, throughout that sort of 20-year sort of hiatus, I've always had like an SPDX, whatever it is, sampling pads and things like that, and trigger modules and things like that. I always kept my finger in that pie as far as having that gear at home for a gig or what have you, So when I was exposed to the DWE thing and played it was like it made me just as excited about that as I was when I first heard the V drums, the TD10 back in the day.
Wow.
I just thought this is like really, really cutting edge technology. Yeah, and so that's how that came about. And I just the playability of the kit. It looks like a DW kit, and the shells are a maple. It's a truly hybrid kit, so you can take the trigger modules out, which basically come out of the shell, put some real heads on it, bang, you got yourself an acoustic drum kit.
Wow.
Yeah, and it does sound great. like I A/B'd it against my DW, and it's like, yep, nothing wrong here, man. So the DWE thing was great. We launched the kit. I think it was everywhere. Melbourne, Sydney. Did we do Adelaide? Yeah, we did Adelaide. That's right. Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth. We launched it and got some really good feedback. And so I basically presented. I'd play a couple numbers and then I kind of dive into the features of the kit, kind of like what I did back with the TD10 back in the day, man. It all came flooding back,
Wow.
And incidentally, like all the Roland guys that I used to work for back in 20-something years ago are still there.
Oh, okay.
So it was like a full circle thing, man. It was really, really, it was really cool. And they'll just equally as warmingly acceptance of me doing this thing again, because I never left on bad terms, and that's the other thing you should never do is leave anything, never say no or tell anyone to whatever, it's just be nice, man, and so the full circle thing was great. It was like surreal,
Yeah.
And so it was great to kind of rekindle those friendships, and it was just nothing but fun times on the road with these guys.
Yep.
And make no mistake about it. I mean, it's a selling point. I'm there to kind of just to play the kit, show people what it does. Here are the sounds. This is what you can manipulate. It goes pretty deep, the software. So I gave a real overview as far as like pretty much the drum sounds, taking a drum kit, for example, and, where you can do this to it. There's a mixer section. You can choose which microphones you want to play on it. It goes pretty deep, man. Pretty much like is a BFD or one of those sort of drum sampling software things, which I don't really have because I've got my own sort of tracking studio at home, so I record my own drums.
Yep.
But geez, the samples on this thing, far out, man. It's really great. And and playing drum kits that are a limited run, like limited edition,
Yes.
50th anniversary, DW kit, which they only made X amount, or a true cast bronze snare. They only made 100 of those. I've got the sample, like just demoing that stuff. People's eyes would just light up.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd listen to the sample, then I'd go online and try and listen to like a YouTube clip, and it's the same. Just the same snare drum. It's done really, really well, man.
Yeah, wow.
Chad Wackerman had a great hand, a big input in the recording of all the drums.
Ah.
Yeah. So it wasn't done, and the amount of microphones they used, oh my Lord, it's great. If you're a gear junkie like I've become,
Yes.
microphones and things like that, it tells you how each drum was recorded with what microphones.
Right.
Yeah. So, especially the snare drum, all of it really, but the snare drum is really cool. You get a choice of two mics, like a dynamic and a condenser, and it can either be a 57 or something else, or a Sennheiser 421 or anything. I mean, it's also, there's bottom mics. Then they talk about the overheads, and they talk about the room mics, like not just 2 room mics, but we're talking like about probably 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's like closer to the kit.
Yep.
Mid, I guess you go, then furthest away, and the detail that you can go to. I mean, the presets sound incredible, but the detail you can go to, as far as messing around with the ambient mics, is pretty incredible. And I had a lot of fun doing that, And I, to the point that I actually put together a Phil Collins drum kit, because there's some Gretsch kits in there too, right?
Okay.
So I stumbled on this Gretsch kit, and from the samples, it sounded like they were bottomless heads. So just like concert toms.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me. Anyway, so I'm kind of just tweaking this kit, and I hit the reverb button. There's a reverb thing you can add, artificial reverb, like your halls and, rooms and what have you. Because I was just using the ambient mics, which sound incredible. So I hit the reverb button. All of a sudden, it was kind of hit the tom. It was like a it was a 10-inch tom, and it sounded sound like the in the air tonight
Yeah.
toms, right? That sort of gatey verb thing.
Mm-hmm.
I went, gee, I wonder if there's an 8-inch tom in here. Oh, there is. So I signed my 10 to be the 8. Then I assigned the 12 because the kits are like 10, 12, 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the 10-inch became the 8, the 12-inch became the 10, and the 16 became, I think I left it as a 16. And so when I signed the 8-inch tom with that verb on it, it was that sound.
Wow.
And it was freaking me out. I'm thinking, wow, this sound. I said, well, I've got to do a Phil Collins thing. So, I mean, the obvious choice would have been, in the air tonight, but you got sort of 2 minutes of nothing before the Phil comes in.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty hard for me to do this play along, and I'm just twiddling my thumbs until that moment.
Yeah.
So I picked another tune. I picked Billy Don't Lose My Number, which
yeah.
is off
Yeah.
the No Jacket Required album. And it's 8 bars up the front. And it's got that drum fill. And it worked perfectly. And so that was my finishing number, or one of the finishing numbers I would do for the clinic. And everyone's eyes would like, oh, wow, it does that as well. And I'm thinking, yeah, it does. Sorry, guys. But if you ever want to join a Phil Collins cover band, you're covered.
Wow.
And it was great. It was just really good to get deep in that thing, and extract those sounds. And there's cymbal sounds too. There's like Sabians, there's some Zildjians, there's Pasties, Istanbul. What else? There was some other ones too. And it's constantly being added. There's always sounds being added to this package, But there was a flat ride too.
Huh.
The flat ride sounded incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So you could have... I kind of set up a little bop kit, and it sounded great. It sounded really good as far as it being an electronic drum kit.
Sure.
It was really, really good, really easy to play.
Yeah, what did it feel like?
Feel great, man.
Yeah?
It really did. I would sometimes do a demo 1 week, then maybe not do one for like maybe 3 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't got the kit at home, right? But whenever we get to the workshop or the clinic, I sit behind it and set it up. It feels like I'm playing my DW kit at home.
Wow.
Because I'm setting up the drums the way I want them to.
Mm-hmm.
And the heads on them, the heads aren't as trampoliny as what they used to be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That was always the thing. When the V-drums came out back in 97, I mean, mesh heads was like, yeah, thank God we got mesh heads, but felt like you're kind of like, the rebound was like out of control,
Yeah.
So you had to alter your playing style to kind of accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
With these ones now, what they've done with the floor tom and the snare are triple ply sort of mesh heads.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of, it feels like a those Pro Logic practice pads, the blue one, which is almost like it's the spongiest one you can get.
Yep.
Right? It almost feels like a mouse pad.
Mm.
That's the one I use. I don't use the red or the green ones. They're too just hard,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I like a bit of give, right? And it makes your work a bit harder, right? That's what it feels like on this snare drum. It feels like you're playing that. So there's a bit of sponginess to it. There's not bouncy, blah, blah, blah. And the same goes for the 16-inch floor tom. That is also a 3-ply head.
Mm-hmm.
The others are 2-ply heads. And obviously you can tune them down or up. It doesn't affect the sample sound because you're triggering it, right?
Yep.
So I always found that I would tune these heads to a pitch. Dum dum dum.
Wow.
Because that's the way I like it.
Yeah, sure.
That's how my acoustic kit would sound.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what's being played, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's being heard. You're dictated by the sample and where that's tuned at. But then you can also tune the sample, right?
Yeah.
So, like I said before, I had a 10-inch tom that sounded like an 8. Didn't feel like an 8. Sounded like an 8.
Mm.
But the heads on them are really good. They're really, really, like everything. The kit feels spongy to play, like kind of good, not in a bad way.
Yes.
The bass drum takes a little bit, to me, took a bit of time to get used to. But when you play it acoustically, right, obviously you're just playing like the pad sound.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like you kind of go, yeah, all right, I can get used to that. But when you put your headphones on and you're hearing the actual bass drum sound, the best way I can describe it is like almost like a virtual reality. You're being submersed right in the kit.
Yes.
And for some reason, it doesn't matter what sort of headphones you're using. Like I was using some Audio-Technica type headphones, and that accentuates the bottom end a little bit, you know. It felt what I was playing and what I was hearing, it felt like I was burying the beater through the, you know what I mean? It became really spongy. For some reason, it felt like that.
Wow.
When you hear it. When you take the headphones on, it becomes a bit plasticky. You kind of hear it and go, oh, yeah. But when you put it on, it's like, oh, my Lord. It's like, okay. So it felt, from that aspect, they kind of nailed it. They're still working on the cymbals side of things. They wanted, because the apparently, you know, they did their market research. And unbeknownst to me, there's a whole online electronic drum community, which are really fanatical about electronic drums.
Sure.
I had no idea till I jumped into this world again, right?
Yep.
And what they were crying out for were metal cymbals, right? Now, the thing with metal cymbals is that you got to deaden them, right? Because you got to have the triggers inside, okay? So they're quite loud, right? And again, when you just play the kit without any headphones on, it's, you know, it's really tippy tappy, you know. But then you put the headphones on, hit your ride cymbal, and all the playing surfaces, you know, it responds to the edge, to the bow, and to the bell. It's really dynamic. You forget that it's that sort of metal cymbal as opposed to like a Roland, the rubber cymbals, right? So there was a bit of a backlash to that. But when you're playing, the philosophy behind it was, well, if you're playing on stage, and you got everyone's got the drums coming through their foldbacks or whatever it is, you're not really going to be hearing that. And you kind of don't, you know. But these online guys, man, felt like it was pretty brutal.
Because the cymbal's too loud?
Yeah. Oh, the cymbals are too loud. But you guys kind of asked for it. But there's always a fine line with that, you know. There's some people that really loved it and some people that don't. But little do they know that, you know, down the track, Roland are going to make that. You'll be able to use your Roland rubber cymbals with the DW kit. It's inevitable. It's going to happen, you know. So, you know, I just found it really, you know, I didn't kind of go into that world at all, man. You know, I just sat back and I was just getting the feedback from our DWE representatives, you know. And that's something that they need to address.
Yes.
Not me. I'm just playing the drums, man. You know? Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. So
yeah.
But from a feel aspect, I always felt comfortable.
Cool.
Didn't feel like I, you know, had to change anything. You just got to work on, you know, getting the trigger sensitivities and things like that, and the layering of sounds. You know, you just got to take time with it, you know. I mean, you're more than welcome to use the presets, you know, but what really would work for anyone that tries any electronic thing is just getting the triggering right. How low do you want it? How low do you want your ghost notes to come out? You know what I mean? And there's a triggering point or level that you got to set it to, which will enable those ghost notes to be heard, you know, because I did spend a fair whack of my time was getting that right, because what I wanted to do was to demonstrate playing stuff that I would normally play on my acoustic kit on this thing, especially between hi-hat and snare, you know, and open and close hi-hat sounds, especially foot hi-hat sounds.
Yes.
Right? Because I kind of, that's part of my playing, I guess, you know, and I didn't really want that to be sacrificed, or I didn't want my playing to be adjusted to accommodate something that won't work for me, or else I don't want to demo the product. Sure. You know, I'm kind of just lying, you know. So I worked on it, and I got it to a point where, you know, I could play stuff which is like, yeah, this sounds really, really good, you know. And I would always just double check it with whenever we do a sound check, you know, with the guys at the front. Can you guys hear this? Is this translating well? You know, and they go, yep, it's all good. So can you hear the foot? You know, you know. I mean, this kit's so triggers. Like, you can switch the snares off, the snare wires off the snare drum.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and then it makes a noise when you flip them back on. It makes the sound.
Oh.
Yeah, ever so gently, you know. It's not like it's a loud thing. But, I mean, that's the sort of detail that these guys went to. I mean, the fact that you could throw off the snare wires and play it as an open snare drum, it's nuts. And the other thing it really did really well too was pitch bending. You could put your stick on the head and, you know, press onto the head and go do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And I was like,
wow.
And muting. Oh, my goodness. You can hit the drum and put your hand on it and it'll mute the sound.
Oh.
Yeah, so you could kind of get those sort of elements working for you if you want to play that way.
Yeah.
And so, or express yourself that way. The, you know, cross stick was pretty good. That's something they kind of need to work on a little bit, but that's more from a player's point of view, you know. If that's something you really want to focus on, you just tweak it a certain way and you got it. You know, just like with anything, man. It's like with guitar players and bass players. They agonise over pedals and, you know, the amp settings and this does this. I kind of equate that line of thinking with what we do, what you got to do for the electronic drum thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because you can go deep into this stuff, down that rabbit hole, and, you know, you might not ever come back out, you know, which would be a shame, you know.
Do you ever see yourself using it in a context other than, like, the demo?
Yeah, I'd like to use aspects of it. You know, I reckon I could definitely find use for definitely the snare drum element, especially on certain gigs. You know, because there's only so X amount I can do with my main snare drum, unless I have like an auxiliary 10 or a 12-inch snare drum to the left of me or something like that. But more often than not, it's the main snare drum. And you know these tricks, Luke, you know, you put like a splash cymbal, tightens it up, and you get that poppy snare, or you put a cutout drum head, and it makes it the douche sound. You loosen your snare wires a little bit, and all of a sudden you got an 8-inch deep snare drum, you know, fat as, you know. And that's pretty much all you got. So you got 3 types of sounds you can, and then there's maybe some variations on that. But having the trigger, like having a trigger mounted in it, would be, I reckon, would give you more scope. That's something that I'd love to, you know, hopefully I can kind of incorporate. Maybe in Daryl's gig, you know, because, you know, that would be really cool. Like sample the original snare drums on some of those, like the 90s stuff that John Watson played on, you know. Just get that. Wouldn't it be cool? That'd be great. Imagine just, you know, like, imagine being in the audience and kind of hear and go, oh, well, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
You know, that'd be real. You know, I'd be really impressed by that if I kind of went to a gig and heard my favourite band play and went, oh, wow, look at those drum sounds. It's like, it's just like the record. Well, they're from the record. Yeah. You know? So maybe down the road we can look into that, you know. So, yeah. DWE, they're doing some great stuff, man. They really are. You know, I never thought I'd be back in that 20-something years later doing this stuff again.
Yeah.
But
wow.
It was heaps fun, man. It really was.
Yeah, cool.
You know,
I'm glad to hear about the metal symbol thing, because I'm not in that like forum thing, but I took a cruise ship gig with Carnival out of Miami in 2018.
Okay.
And Roland had put out whatever new flagship electronic kit was, and so Carnival made a deal with them that they would bring them into their studios and put them on the ships. But I didn't know I was going to America to play an electronic kit. I thought I was playing real drums.
Oh, no.
Because this was like the first year that they'd signed this new deal.
Yeah.
And I hated it with a passion because I was like I've come to play drums.
Absolutely.
And what is this? And
totally, man.
Like it was like a $15,000 rig.
Yeah,
and,
not cheap.
Like some things were cool, but the cymbals were the worst, and I hurt my wrist.
Yeah, because you're trying to play them too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, man.
I had to completely change the technique.
Yeah.
And like...
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the... that's the thing you got to kind of be careful of, you know, because those sort of kits, or even the DWE, the harder you play them, you're not going to get any louder, man. No. It's a volume knob that'll make it louder.
Yeah.
You know?
And this was like a 4 hours cover gig.
Oh, my
and it's
Lord.
like...
That's a lot of work, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I came back being like, I will never touch an electronic drum kit
I can dig
again.
that. I can dig how you can have that. I can dig how you can have that sort of philosophy and mindset, because if it happened to me, I'd probably be the same. Yeah.
But it's interesting hearing, like, because I didn't know about this old Roland experience of yours too.
Yeah.
But, like...
Not many people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool that you've, like, had those two things. And to have such, like, it would have been, like, such a revolutionary thing to have that mesh head first appear. To then, like...
it was killer.
Yeah.
That and the module, the TD10 module, was, because Roland had brought out there was the GT8 guitar pedal board, which had the COSM technology, composite object sound modeling.
Okay.
If I remember what that stands for. Anyway, I remember because Hosford used to do the demos for this too, right? And you could change the amp, the microphone on it. You could change the tuning.
Yes.
Like you could have an open E tuning, on your guitar when it's like, but you're triggering that. You can have all these different alternative tunings without having to retune your guitar. So that's what this COSM technology did, right? So I gave you all these parameters and what room you had the amp in. Like was in the studio, in a gymnasium or a bathroom, right? So when the TD10 came out, it was utilizing that same principle,
right?
Where and the viewfinder was great. It was really, really big. And it was really easy to navigate. So if you wanted to change your kit, you go, kit, and all of a sudden, here's your drum kit. When you'd hit let's say you wanted to change the snare drum, you just hit it, and then picture of the snare drum comes up.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yep.
So once you're in that zone, you can then choose, if I remember correctly, some of the things were like, dampening.
Yes.
Right? So they had no dampening, one piece of tape 1, tape 2, so 2 pieces of gaffer, right? And you'd see it physically come up on the diagram, right? Yep. And you can definitely hear it, right? And then it'd be like donut ring 1,
yes,
donut ring 2. So it had all these different sort of, variations. And that's just on dampening, right? So then you talk about tuning. I mean, it had the, plus whatever, minus whatever. You could be really ridiculous with it, somewhat unnatural with a snare drum.
Yes.
Like a snare drum will never have that body of note when it's detuned that low. It'll just go, normally that's it, right?
Yeah.
But this thing had, because the way they sampled it, you could kind of still maintain the body of the actual tone of the drum. So you had that. And then you could go, well, then you hit studio. And that's where your EQ parameters came up, just for that drum. We're not talking kick, toms, just that drum. So EQs. Then you could add reverb. Even before that, after that. So you go to that, and you try. So you're in studio mode. You go environment. What environment you want to put your drum kit in? And it had all of them. Had studios, A and B sort of vibe, room 1, 2, 3, gymnasium, bathrooms, tiled, outdoors, which meant it was totally dry. So that's what was blowing me away, like that thing, and that never been really been done.
Yeah, wow.
With any electronic thing up until then, at least to my knowledge, anyway. Because Roland were always way ahead of like Yamaha as far as their drum kit, electronic drum kits. I always felt like Yamaha were like catching up, to them, and also as far as sounds too. And some of the Yamaha stuff's cool, but the Roland thing always had something. They were always like really sort of progressive with what they were doing, So that module was great, but also what it had on the module, you had those faders which had kick snare, toms, and then it had click track, and then some other fader. There was probably 6 faders on there. So not only could you mix your sound internally, but externally you go, well, I probably need a bit more snare. Give me a bit more. So you had the fader experience too, which no one had really done. So it was pretty cool for something back then. And they hadn't released the cymbals aspect, so you were playing a ride cymbal or crashes on pads. So they had the mesh heads for the toms and the kick and the snare, but for the cymbals they were still relying on their old PD 10s or something like that. And that was the first thing I said. Oh, this other bit's great, but this has got to go. Like, I'm playing pads, you know, I'm hitting a rim shot to play a bell sound. It should be the other way, right? Up the top. And they go, I said, why did you stop at just the mesh heads? You really need some cymbals. And they just kind of looked at me. This is the Japanese cats, you know, the inventors, I guess. They kind of just looked at me and just gave me a wink. And as if to say, we've already got that. We're just not going to release it right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then they did. A couple of years later, that stuff was on the market, where they released a hi-hat pedal and cymbals, hi-hat cymbals, I should say, and, you know, a crash size and a ride size, and then it just snowballed from there. It got better. The tracking got better. The triggering got better. The thing about what DW do with their samples is that it's all computer based, so there's more gig RAM, if that makes any sense. So their samples are bigger, right, which captures more I guess the sound of the drum, so you can layer it a lot more than what you get in module based. There's only so much CPU you can have in a module, right? Right. So the difference, this is what I've been told, which makes perfect sense, you know. So that's why the samples of the DW kits are heavier in like sort of load, PC load or Mac load or whatever, you know, gigabytes or whatever you want to call it, than the stuff that's in modules. That's why it sounds different. And our Roland guy, Simon Ayton, who's one of the head drum clinicians in this country, does all the demos for Roland, drumming wise. He was blown away with the DWE thing. Wow. Which took a lot. He told me, he goes, "Yeah, you got no idea how powerful this stuff is." I go, "Really?" He goes, yeah, it's powerful. And he was showing me, because you can play your own samples in there, right? It's in the DWE software. You can record your own and then whack it in there and trigger it. So he sent me a file. This was a while ago of him. He sampled his I think it was a Tama snare drum, tuned it like a Stuart Copeland. Oh yeah. And he sampled it and played it and sent it to me. I was totally blown away with it. Could have sworn it was the real thing. Wow. Yeah, it was incredible. So that's where it's kind of heading with that electronic thing, you know. But you know, getting back to your playing situation, being thrown in amongst the not knowing you're playing electronic drum kit, I probably would have suffered the same fate, hand problems and not knowing how to approach it, you know, because it's not. The harder you play, it doesn't get any louder, man.
Just gets more frustrating.
Yeah, you know.
Are you as much of like a physical gear nerd as you are with the rabbit holes of the like electronic stuff?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah,
because I think we might not the exact same, but we definitely, if you had the Oyster black and blue pearl kit as your first kit, then I also had the same kit.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember how I know that you had that, but is that right that you had the like pearl pre-export and everything?
Yeah, it was like a pre-export. It was very old. It was like early 70s.
Like 70s thing? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a was it a mother? No, it wasn't a mother of pearl, but it was blue. Yeah. Kind of that thing.
Like a mid-blue with black oyster finish
with
thing?
the white Shelley sort of stuff in it, you know. Don't tell me you've got that kit.
It's not in this room. It's at my parents'
that
place.
kit, because I don't know where it ended up.
No, I don't think so, because I got it from my uncle.
Right.
I don't know where he got it from. But, because my mum was like an orchestral percussionist and then teacher.
Okay.
So she was at like Melbourne State with Tony Floyd and Tony Hicks and, you know, all of them. But she always wanted to be a teacher. Yeah. So it was just like timpani and xylophone.
Great.
And then this. But, we always just had the drum kit in our house from my uncle in Sydney. I guess because Mum played a little bit.
Yeah.
And so it was just the kit that was around. I'm trying to see if I can find a photo.
Oh, I'd love to see it. Because mine was like, my dad got it from a mate of his, because that was, offloading a drum kit. And, he paid back then probably $200 or something like that. But it was a really old kit. Even when I got it, it was old. And that was like 83. So this kit I'd obviously done the rounds in the early 70s, I reckon. But I'd be curious to see it.
Oh, I should have pre-planned this better.
That's okay, man.
Just trying to search. I like how on the new iPhone mod you can just type in, I typed in drum.
Yeah.
And so I've got all the photos of...
Oh, does it do that?
Yeah, I just typed in drum and now there's photos of every
wow,
drum that it picks up on. Well, there you go. There's me as a kid with...
It's cute, man. Okay, so it's the lugs. Yeah, it's that period, right? But mine was that blue, but it was like I'm not going to say mother of pearl. That's more of an oyster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the circular colour ones are more oyster. I think mine was like a mother of pearl, which is more like the shapes of white and silvery in amongst blue. I've only got one. I reckon I've only got maybe one picture of that drum kit at home somewhere.
The weird thing about this one was that it had the wrong year's tom mounts.
The which one?
So the tom mounts weren't the original.
Yeah.
They were it was like a double plate, so 2 tom mount with maybe a hex. Yep. And then onto a ball with 4 drum keys.
Yeah. Mine was just one. It was just one for some reason.
Okay.
One tom mount.
Yep.
And it was a 12. I remember it being a 12. And the floor tom was a 16.
Okay.
And the kick was a 20. Had to be a 20. Yeah, 20 by 16, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maple or fiberglass?
No, it wasn't the fiberglass stuff. So it must have been a maple. If they made them maple back then, I don't know.
That's true. Maybe it wasn't maple. I know that mine was wood. Yeah. And wood was the non-normal because most were fiberglass.
That's right. Yeah. And at the time. Around that time when I started playing, Pearl had this kit. It was a Maxwin, which was a cheaper version of the Pearl Export. Okay, and I remember that kit was one that I learned on during my lessons with my teachers, and that was a fiberglass. Okay, that fiber, whatever they call it, fiberglass. Is what they call it? Yeah. Oh, I can be easily corrected, man.
Yeah, maybe it's not a glass thing.
No, not glass. Fiber something. What were they called? Oh my goodness! But mine was definitely a maple. It was definitely a wood kit with a wrap. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And the snare drum was a pearl, but it was a wrap as well, and that was terrible. That wasn't great. The pedal was a Premier pedal, and the hi-hat stand was a Premier stand as well. I remember that. Okay. And I had that kit, man, from 83 to, when did I have it? Till I got my real good kit in 89. Okay. I bought a better kit.
What did you get?
I upscaled to a Pearl World Series kit, and they were maple kits, if memory serves. No, they were birch, actually. I think they were a birch kit. And that was great. 10, 12. No, I got 12, 13, 16, and then I eventually bought a 10. So when 10, 12, 13, 16, half of that kit got stolen. Oh. Yeah, after going to check out. So I'd finish a gig. Mm. Put the drums in the car, went down to King Street to go and see a band at the grain store. And, I parked down this side street, and I remember going back to, go to the car to go home, and the police were down that whole street, and apparently every car got hit, including mine. And what got taken was, what did they take? They took the 10, Yeah, because I had a combo case, like a tom case.
Yeah.
So they took the 12 and the 13 because it was in the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they might have taken the 10 and they took my snare drum. They didn't take the bass drum because it was too big, and they didn't take the hardware case because it was too heavy. And they didn't take my cymbals. But I learned a real big lesson then like, don't do that ever again. And maybe it's time you should insure your equipment. And that's when I took out insurance, right?
Yep.
And so but that was a Pearl World Series kit, and
cool.
Yeah, it was really good. That serviced me from 89 to about 95.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you have the
rack?
The rack?
Got the rack, man.
Cool.
Yeah, I had the rack. I've still at Mum and Dad's.
Yep.
Probably gathering, rust and dust and what have you. But that was one of the first Pearl ones that they released, and that one I took on the road. That rack I took on the road when we were doing Tommy's gig, because it was easy for our drum tech.
You just lock everything in,
my
right?
God,
Like
5 minutes set up, and we also mic'd. We used half mic stands to come off the rack as well.
Oh.
So everything was coming off the rack. So there was virtually no stands. The only stand that we had, I remember, was for the snare drum.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we had. Everything else, I think from memory, was mounted off the rack.
Was it a single? Or
single. So the front and then two edges
Yep.
to the side. Oh, I might have had a second one. No, it was definitely just two. Yeah. It was just two. And that's when I was using, I had a Premier Signia kit. And so, that was 10, 12, 14, 16, 22 by 16. Great drums, man. They were really good. Maple, just gorgeous. Really good. Shouldn't have sold them, but anyway, sold them to get a Yamaha kit. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But I had it from like 94 till 2001. I had that kit.
Okay. And that's when you went DW?
That's when I went to Yamaha. After that,
okay.
Yeah, that kind of fell in my lap, the Yamaha thing, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to buy a kit. I didn't want to be tied down by like an endorsement and having to, which is nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's great when you get them, right? Or whatever. Any sort of that sort of deal was fantastic because you get your gear at whatever 50% off or blah blah, all that sort of stuff. Anything that helps you financially to buy gear is a good thing, right? So I really wanted to buy a drum kit. I wanted to buy a kit that I could just own outright. So I went, I checked out all the kits at the time. Went to Pearl, had a look at what they had. I went to DW, and I loved what they had because I had played one of their kits a couple of times when I was used to be playing with Bachelor Girl, which was back in the day, and that was a higher thing. It was like, get a chance to play at DW, fantastic. And it was like, whoa. This is like 98 when I remember playing one. I just went, oh, these are good. And then I found out how much they were, and I went, whoa, okay. So that's when I was when I decided to check them out. The distributor here was more than happy for me to come around to the warehouse and check them out. And then I kind of got the price list, and I went, oh my Lord, I can't afford this,
Yeah.
So that was, something for a later day, I guess. And then I went to, I always had a soft spot for Yamaha because most of my idols were playing Yamaha,
Yeah.
And so I went to Yamaha. A good friend of mine who was working there, Enzo Faila. He won't mind me giving him a shout out. He said, "Yeah, come around, man. I'll set up a few kits for you and try, And so he had a recording custom, and at the time they just released the Maple Custom Absolute and the Maple Birch, the Birch Absolute. Sorry, so they had these new range of Birch and Maple kits as well as the recording custom stuff, and there was about 4 of them, and we played each one of them, and I loved the Maple Absolute. I just said, yeah, it sounds great. So anyway, I went home. And then, I thought about it, and I put a wish list together of what I wanted. I said, give me a price for this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 10, 12, 14, 16. I bought the Dave Weckl snare drum at the time, the dual strain. It was a 14 by 5.5 or 5, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought that. I ordered that one. 2 kick drums, a 20 by 18 and a 22 by 16. So I'm going all out.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm going to go out. And, some hardware, some pedals. The ends, give me a price, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always going to look after me, and the bless him, man. He comes back, he gives me a call the next couple of days, and he says, "Oh, Gerry, don't worry about paying for it." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "No, man. You're more than willing to buy this stuff. We're more than willing to endorse you and give you the kit." I mean, well, I wasn't shopping around for an endorsement. I just wanted to buy something. He goes, no. The fact that you really like the stuff shows us that you like the gear, and it's not us trying to convince you to play the gear.
Yes.
And I thought that was, that was really comforting,
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I get the kit, but then they wanted me to swap over the kits, like to use the newer version.
Oh,
like,
okay.
so we'll give you another kit, but we want that one back so you can be seen using the new one. I said, oh man, it's like now it's like 4 years or 3 years me using this kit. It's just starting to break in. Everything's starting to settle. I've still got the kit today, man.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, still got it. Yeah. So would you like to swap over to this new, what's it called, Maple Absolute Nouveau? Had the flick off lugs, and I tried it, and the kit sounded fine. It was great, but I was really attached to this thing, and I said, "Hey, Enz," I said, "Man, I said, sorry, man, you can't have the other one back. Work out a price, and I'll buy it off you." So then I bought the kit, right? So I ended up buying the kit, and that was probably the best decision I ever made. I didn't, and Enz was totally cool with it, man. He was great, and so that relationship with Yamaha, when Enzo was there, was fabulous. And there's been no other guys there, and then fast forward to 2009, and that's when the DW entered the picture. I'm not going to get into it. Why all I can say is that DW did things for me that I as far as backline requests that Yamaha kind of didn't want to do at that time, and so they went above and beyond. And I wasn't even a DW endorsee. I rang a mate of mine who was working for him. I said, "Man, I need a kit in Hobart. I'm doing this thing." I said, such to give me a hard time. They're not getting back to me. And I said, "What do you need?" I said, "Just kick, snare, 2 racks, tom, 4 boom stands. Simple, man." He goes, "Leave it with me." He brings me back in 45 minutes and says, "It's sorted." I said, "What's sorted?" Because we're sending you "Oh, you're joking, really?" He goes, "No, that's all fine, man. We need a DW kit down there anyway. You'd be the perfect excuse to send one down there and let other DW endorsees take over." So now I'm getting to play a DW kit. Like, oh man, and then there was like, flashbacks to '98. Like, oh man. And then I asked them. I said, "Well, what can I do to get one?" And they helped me out, and the rest is sort of history. I've been playing DW ever since, and they've always been really great in helping not just me but all the other DW endorsees. If they need gear somewhere, they do their best to do that, and they totally understand if we can't use the kit there. There's stuff with Daryl that. I'm using a Pearl kit or a Yamaha kit, and it's all good. It services the need.
Yes.
So, but the DW thing, man, those kits they're not cheap, but they're really consistent. I don't think I've played a bad one ever as backline. Nothing that I've really wrestled with, trying to extract a sound, and you know what it's like. It's like when you're playing your own kit and you know what heads you got to put on it, getting a sound is really quick. You're not fighting it with different types of heads that you're not used to. Like I struggle going from like sometimes because I play Evans heads too, playing Remos, and that's a different experience. It really is. A lot of people go, an Emperor is like a G2. I go, well, not exactly, because I can hear the difference between a G2 and an Evan and an Emperor, So theoretically, they're both like two-play hairs, right? Yeah, there's something different about it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the way the glue is set in the rim, how it's set, how it sits on the hoop. I got no idea. But to me, it's definitely a different playing experience, and that's why I love, when you're so attached to a drum head, it's part of your sound, and when you don't get that, it's sort of like like you're playing someone else's drum kit sort of vibe. To me, it's never quite the same. It doesn't quite have the same feel. You might be extracting somewhat of the same sound, but it's not exactly the same sound. Same with microphones. You put different microphones over your kit compared to what you're used to, it's going to sound completely different, and especially microphones that maybe have had their day. Capsules are dead. There's no brightness in the top end. I had that happen to me not that long ago. I'm playing my hi-hats, and it's like, there's a different microphone that we're used to, but I'm used to. Wasn't on there, and I'm listening, going. And I'm turned to our fallback guy. I said, can we do something about the muddiness? I said, sounds weird, man. It's like, I've got these old pair of hi-hats too, man. Like the top is a late 70s, 2002 Black Label top. And the bottom, well, it's actually part of the Sound Edge series, right? Oh. Right? The ripples around the bottom hi-hat. Well, I didn't like the sound of the ripple bottom hi-hat, so I put my 80s bottom New Beat hats. So you got this ultra bright 2002 with a fairly bright bottom, New Beat from the 80s. And it sounds incredible. It sounds great. Real crisp and bright, kind of what I needed for Daryl's gig. And we weren't getting that with this microphone, man. It was like kind of doing my head in a little bit. And we managed to swap the mic over. Bang, problem solved. The microphone was dead. And even the front of house guy was sort of going, yeah, it's a big difference. And I said, yeah, I'm not kind. So in that case, these overheads are kind of doing the same trip, man. It's like there's no brightness, sparkle in my cymbals, and I'm using pasty 2002 Thins. Okay. Like a 17 and a 19. Bright as. Yeah. With an Evolution ride. So I got these things should just cut. They sound bright naturally. So when you're not getting that naturally from a microphone where, you shouldn't have to EQ much to get that sound. It should just whack them up flat. You should be able to get that sound. Wasn't getting that. And so we discovered that sometimes when we don't travel with our own mic kit, we're at the liberty of what's given to us. It's like, okay. And then, sort of amplify that with drum kit, different types of heads, different sizes. You kind of you can make things happen. It's never going to be a problem, but it's never going to be your sound. It's going to be slight variations on that.
I guess that's like the main benefit of the endorsee is that when you're signed, then they're providing you drums as much as possible. As much as possible.
Yeah. The guys at Deluxe, there's a hire company in Melbourne called Deluxe. They do guitar amps, bass, the whole thing, drum kits, and they do all the big touring acts too, like, they can supply backlines, They must see my name and go, oh yeah, we know exactly what Gerry wants, because it's pretty much the same kit. I get the same kit. It's just like this champagne sparkle, cool, like a 20 by 16. The toms are shallow, like a 10 by 7, 12 by 8. I love 12 by 8s, man. 12 by 9s, I can never work the sound right. It's a bit of a struggle for me sometimes, But 12 by 8, I like kind of short toms. But then again, I like a 14 by 14 and a 16 by 14.
Yes.
I kind of like the depth of those, you know. And I tune the 16 so it's barely hanging on.
Okay.
So the 16 sounds more like a gong drum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like it really deep. The 14 sounds more like the 16. You know, I don't crank it up too high, but I just like that the 16, and you know, you mic that bad boy up, it's like it's a cannon front of house. And our front of house guy loves it, you know, because it's more of a statement. You're like, dum, 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 bang. You know, you don't do a double stroke roll on it.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of like that Simon Phillips thing. You know, Simon's got
what
that.
I'm just thinking. Yeah,
it's that thing. You know, who else has got like those big gong drums? There was a lot of drummers that had that. You know, Todd Zuckerman's got that in his setup. You know, and there's a reason Dennis Chambers has got a gong drum, right? You know, when you hit that, it's you know, you're not going to play like a a paradiddle on it, you know, or something that's articulate and got a lot of notes. It's more for effect. You know, dun 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 dun, boom boom, ka. You know, that thing, and there's a sound that is associated with that, and I kind of like to have it on my 16.
Yeah,
because I kind of wish I had a 20-inch gong drum, but you know, who's going to cart that bad boy around? I'm not going to do that, you know. But at least I can get it with the 16.
Yeah.
You know, with slight little sort of dampening, like a couple of moon gels or whatever it is, because it gets a bit, when you know, as you know, when you detune your toms, you get that ripple effect, right? And that's when you know it's like you're right on the edge of that tuning thing. So, but if you kind of get that right, it's just, I mean, mute it with a bit of moon gel or tape, it can be fairly thunderous. But at the same token, my 10's up there, the 10-inch tom's like kind of, you know, higher than what it would normally be. Yeah. I try and go dun dun dun, bang, dun dun dun, almost like thirds between the 10, 12, 4. Actually, sometimes the pitch between the 10 and the 14 are almost octaves apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it kind of works out that way. Which is, again, you're stretching the pitch of the 14 a little bit. It's probably not in its natural habitat to be in that low. But then it sets up the 16 to be really deep, you know.
Yeah.
You know. And with a 20-inch kick, I use an EMAD head on it. And, you know, I mean, I go 20 by 18. I love that. But you don't get that on the road much because it's more of a boutique size, you know. So you get a 20 by 16. Or I get a 22 by 16. Hence why I don't like the 12 by 9. So if it's a 12 by 8, I can still get it where I want it.
Yes.
It being a 22, right?
Yeah.
So when I open up the case and go, oh, it's a 12 by 9. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to be sitting a little bit higher. I'm going to have to angle the toms a little bit, you know, to get it where it should sit, you know. And sometimes it's just resting on the actual bass drum.
Yep.
You know, I can't get it where I want to go. Well, just rest it on there. As long as it doesn't rattle, I'll put a piece of cloth or something underneath it, so the metal on metal from the lug nut of the bass drum is not vibrating the bottom tom, you know. Far out. The things we have to go to, man, just to kind of get that happening. It's ridiculous.
But you want to be comfortable, though?
You want to be comfortable, man. Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know. But yeah, when I see a 20, I go, yeah, we're in. You know, you can give me like a 12 by 10. I don't care. You know. 10 by 10, 12 by 10, you know. You're probably too young to remember this, but Pearl brought out these set of drums. They were square sizes, like 10 by 10, 12 by 12, 13 by 13, 14 by 14. Obviously, when you get down to 14 by 14, it's not that bad. But 12 by 12 was like, what were they called? Oh, they were, you know, they're pretty rare to find because I don't think they made a lot of them.
Right.
But I remember back in the day in the Modern Drum magazine, you know, these kits were available, square sizes, power, or what do you call them? Power, maybe power toms?
I don't know. That sounds familiar. Power toms, that term. I'm not enough of like a gear nerd.
I will change that, man.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So yeah, it's that. And then they had those toms back in the 70s with the
curved ones?
like a bell, like a horn player, you know. Staccato, I think they were called. Staccato toms or staccato drums. There's all this footage of like Billy Cobham back in the 70s kind of using them. And which kind of makes sense actually when the sound's, the shell is angled towards the audience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like a horn player, the bell is
Yeah.
away from them.
It's pointing out.
Yeah. I've never played one close up, so I could be totally wrong. But
What about those like Simon Phillips?
the octobands?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great. Still Copeland was famous for having those too.
Oh, yes.
The Police, But I think Simon Phillips, from the early days of him having those in his setup, used them as part of patterns to for songs and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because he had the 8 and 8 and it was all...
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he would tune them sort of melodically, and whether that was intentional or not, that's kind of what I heard anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, he used that to great effect, along with his gong drum, And we're talking about those sort of cats that are very meticulous about their own drum sound, would mix their own kits. And same with what Weckl does. Weckl mixes his own kit and sends left and right. Signals to the front of house guy. And, yeah, did you not know that?
No.
Oh yeah, big time, man.
Wow.
Big time. He's been doing that since the 80s with his time with like Chick Corea and all those bands. Yeah, it's quite fascinating to hear Dave talk about that stuff. So and that's why it's got such a consistent drum sound too. It doesn't vary much, man, because he knows what he's doing.
Wow.
The same with Simon Phillips. And Simon Phillips is a great engineer, recording engineer.
Yeah.
So I think that's really handy to kind of develop those sort of skills in what your drum sound is and how you want to convey that on a recording or in a live situation, But if you're not that way inclined, you should always work with your sound guy to get the maximum results out of what you do. And it's also handy to maybe to learn to speak their lingo a little bit, sort of like, the kick drum, kind of sounds boxy, mid-rangey. Can we do something about that? Just stuff like that. And then they'll know. As soon as you start using the words like boxy, thin, too bottom-endy, you don't have to go into EQ terminology. But if you know it, go for it, They kind of go, oh, yeah, okay. And they know what to reach for,
Yes.
and to kind of get that happening, Same with snares and toms and what have you, that knowing how to speak the lingo a little bit. The other one that I learned a lot from was watching, Dave Weckl instruction videos where he talks about that side of the drum production. Talks about flipping the phase on the snare drum. So like flip the sound source, so the polarity is not the same as the bottom snare drum mic, or the same as the overheads, right?
Yep.
Because when you flip the phase on the snare drum or the overheads, it can either become really thin or it's fat, or there's body to the sound, right? And you can hear it straight away when it's when it's the difference, right? What I learned from him was, like, he says in his video, this is early on, like 2000s, when he released a group of videos talking about this sort of stuff. He goes, I don't know what it is, but somehow I got to flip the phase on my floor toms. I go, well, that's interesting. So I started doing that. I started, like asking engineers, can we just try, we'd be trying to EQ the floor toms and it's not quite happening. I said, well, hey, do you want to just flip the phase on the 14 and the 16? And he'd do it and I'd be just he'd flip it and I go, oh, and we both look at each other and go, oh, there's that natural resonance and bottom end that we've been trying to EQ into the drum.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So you don't need to go heavy on the EQ. For some reason, that thing, can we just flip the phase on the floor toms, has stuck in my mind when Dave, and it happens. It's like, and it works. Maybe not for every situation, but at least it's troubleshooting something that is not quite sounding right in your ears or in the fallback. Because back in the day, we used to use like wedges and drum fills and stuff like that.
Yep.
Which would get, I'd have the whole kit blaring in it, and you hit a floor tom and it would sound incredibly thin, but then we'd, our fallback engineer was the one that would flip the phase, and unbeknownst to me, that's what he was doing. And I go, yeah, that's right, not knowing that that's what he was doing to make it right, you know.
Yes.
So, you know, you learn things as you get older, you know what I mean? So, so we kind of learned a lot about working with a front of house guy and tuning drums too, Luke. You know, sometimes your toms go, doo, there's a dip, right? It might be too much front of house, you know, so he'll go out. Some guys go, oh, it's a bit of a dip. They're very diplomatic about it. They don't say, oh, that sounds terrible. They just say, oh, there's a bit of a dip on that tom. And I can hear, I go, yep, I hear that. Give me a second. So it's either the bottom head or top head, right? So you just, dum, 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 and you kind of, oh, yeah, okay, now my top head's too high, it's pitchy, let's just bring it down. So it's a negotiating game, you know, tuning top heads, bottom heads. But it's great when you've got the front of house guy that's and you can hear your tom too, what they're hearing through the microphone. You know, it's really handy. Because, you know, as you know, when you tune a drum acoustically, when you put a mic on it, it could enhance some ugly tones that you're not hearing because the mic is closer to the drum. It's like sticking your ear to the drum and then playing it. It's like all of a sudden you're hearing all this bottom end and what have you. You know, it's like this proximity effect, right? So the same thing happens when you stick a mic too close to a drum. You're getting all this sort of unwanted bottom end. So we check that stuff. You know, we check into tuning, and then you know, when he's happy, I know he'll go, okay, tom 2. Okay, great. Tom 2, boom, 12. Okay, 12 drums always, 12-inch drums always take a little bit of time to, for me, they do anyway, a bit of time to kind of give some love, you know. And once we settle on that, done, 14 done, 16 done, you know, but it's just working back and forth because he knows, engineers at the front of house know that it all starts from the source. And it's the same when you're doing a recording from home, you know. It's good sounding drums, you know, reasonable quality microphones. Doesn't have to be the expensive stuff. Can just be whatever, right? Going into a nice interface, man, you can get some killer sounds. Even just kick snare overheads, man, or kick snare, or just kicking 2 overheads, depending on what you're doing. I mean, you can get tremendous results these days, home recording wise. But also, you know, it's nice when you go into a, you know, kick-ass studio and it's like, you know, you got every piece of gear at your disposal, you know, and microphones and things like that, you know.
And a nice sounding room.
Nice sounding room. Always starts with that, man. Good drums, good sounding drums, right? And a good sounding room. The room doesn't have to be big. It can be small. But if the drums don't sound boxy and unnatural, right? If they don't sound unnatural, you're halfway there. Truly, that's I've discovered that. It's like, you know, so hence, you know, when I built my room at home, it was for 2 things. Obviously to practice in and being soundproof, but also, you know, I want to record in this room. And my previous home was the same deal too. You know, that was the 2 prerequisites. So this room I got now, the drums sound great acoustically. So I got no problem sticking some mics up and capturing that. It's all about capturing, you know, tracking, capturing. You know, to me, it's trying to get the most out of those microphones in whatever you got. You know, if you can record it really well, whoever's going to mix it, he's not going to have that much problems, you know. And I learned all that stuff by looking over the shoulders of engineers of doing sessions, sticking around, not just packing my gear and leaving, but packing up my gear, put it in the car, then come back in the studio while I watched, you know, overdubs being done or fixes being done, guitar players, bass players, whatever, you know, punch-ins, things like that. So I would just sit there and just listen and just watch what the engineers would do. And I also took note of what microphones were being put over my drum kit, you know, and made mental notes. I go, one day, yeah, I'll get that. I'll get a pair of, you know, AKG 414s. Yeah, that's great. Obviously some 57s. Yeah, why would they use it on the bass drum? Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll get one of those, you know. And slowly, I did, and then some, you know. It doesn't stop. Because there's always something else that comes out you want to try, you know. And the good thing, these companies are all making, you know, sort of vintage gear, but brand new.
Yep.
So you don't have to fork out, you know, $4,000-$5,000 for a U87 Neumann mic. You can get something that's cloned, that's very close to it, you know, and you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. You know, same with microphone pre's too.
Yes.
Preamps, you know.
Yeah, things have become so much more affordable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big time, man. You know, my first sort of venture into recording at home was a Roland VS 2480 hard disk recorder, right? And that was in 2000. I bought this thing, and because of my association with Roland, I got it at a friends and family price, which was $5,000. So this thing was like 10 grand retail.
Wow.
But it did 24 channels. I could record 16 channels in one hit, but it was a 24-track recorder. And at the time, so then we're talking like it's like 2000s, early 2000s. Around that time, Pro Tools was everywhere. And I remember doing sessions where Pro Tools was in every studio, but it was crashing. And I realized that the computers that they were running weren't quick enough to facilitate the software. So the hardware they weren't quick enough.
Yep.
So you'd be doing a session, and then you get the engineer go, sorry, Jerry, we have to take a break, or it's crashed.
Yep.
You know, the spinning whirl or whatever it is. Yeah. It was quite common back in those days. And I just, you know, knew that the processing power of a computer wasn't fast enough. And so I made a decision that, I'm going to look at the hard disk recorder, and that thing was rock solid. Because it was just a standalone machine.
Wow.
You know, and I've still got it at home somewhere. You know, like no one would want to buy it because it's old technology, but it still works.
Yeah,
you know,
wow.
I tracked so much stuff on that thing, man. You know, it had a CD SCSI burner, so you could burn your files onto a CD, and then you could import them into people that were running Logic or Pro Tools and things like that.
Wow.
Or any software, music, DAW, as everyone calls it. Yeah. It was great, man.
Wow.
And then I made the jump to tools when computers were quick enough. And I haven't looked back, and now computers are so freaking fast.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Kind of records things before we even play them. That's how quick they are. You know, it's kind of nuts, but the recording, the Roland thing was great. It was a great unit. I thought the microphone pre's in it were really good. But now all that stuff is so much affordable. You know, you can get Neve 1073 clone pre's for like half the price of a legit one, I guess. But yeah, again, you'd be hard pressed. You got to have ears from hell to try and tell the difference. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, same with those microphones. I think it's the same thing. They're making the gear so good and affordable. And it's good for drummers too. I think it opens up that avenue of being able to track from home more appealing. You know, and so. Which is something I've always said. I tell my students this. You know, I said, have you got like a little setup at home, something like that? And they say no. I said, I think you might be you should start thinking about it. You know, even something simple, something really simple, kick, snare, overhead, or whatever it is, because it's the way of the future. And I saw the writing on the wall. Saw the writing on the wall about, when I bought the 2480, the hard disk recorder, when this is the way of the future. Everyone's going to be tracking from home. So I sort of started working towards that back then.
Wow.
Knowing that these big studios, unfortunately, they're not going to survive, and there's not many studios around, man, that are a legit recording studio. I mean, there are home studios that people have built, but I'm talking commercial. I mean, they're doing commercial projects from home, but not like the old days where you had Metropolis and Sing 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 studios. There was a few others. Sing Sing South, which is on Church Street. Just landmark studios. The only one that's still currently open and working is Alan Eaton's. It's in St Kilda, and they used to do a lot of film scores there.
Mm-hmm.
They probably still do. And throughout the 80s, a lot of TV work was done there. TV shows, like Young Talent Time and Logies were done there.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of other stuff, and I remember doing a lot of work out of there. But that was like there was 5 days a week. It was a studio.
Yes.
And there was always something going on, man. Now I don't think so. It's just everyone's doing it from home, and you might get someone to mix for you.
Mm-hmm.
But even that, everyone's looking at YouTube clips on how to do it, and trying new ways of doing things, and it's not put mixing engineers out of work. It's just they're just going to do it from home, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but it still doesn't beat going into a studio and tracking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here, but I do a lot of it from home because people ask me to do it. And they've heard my results, and it's kind of like, some of the things I've played on, man. It's been on TV. It's been played on bloody, sporting arenas and things like that. I did a couple of AFL grand finals where, whoever was miming to my thing was actually recorded in my studio.
Yep.
It's quite comical, you know.
Yeah.
And but that's the way it's. Oh, you can do it from home, Gerry. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yep.
And it came in handy when 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The lockdowns and stuff like that. Man, I was really busy at home. I was doing a lot of stuff. A lot of people wanted their songs to be recorded, and I go, yep, no problem, hand them over.
Yep. I'm ready. I've been doing it all for.
I'm already been set up. Up until that time, it was already 20 years of kind of doing it from home and fine tuning that thing. And it's all trial and error, man. Like practicing drums. It's trial and error. You work on something to get better at it. It's the same with audio sort of things. You can go deep into how you record something, and the next time you might try it a little bit differently, and then you might stick to this formula. Then you might try another miking technique. And you go, well, that works great. Let's stick on that, and then you discover different types of microphones. There are ribbon microphones, which captures the sound differently, and it's more used for this style of music, and all that stuff. It's just trial and error and learning. So, I go back to Weckl because he's managed to really guide us through this stuff from a drummer's point of view, not from an audio engineer. It's great hearing what the drummer says, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like hearing a chef talk about something that they've cooked, and they've trialed, and they've tested and trialed it to give you this final beautiful meal. Not some whatever it is saying how good it is.
Yeah.
This guy's proven how good it is because he's trial and error.
Yeah.
Change the recipe, whatever, and there it is. The recipe is what it is. Yeah. Same with with what Dave does. There's a lot of trial and error. You can tell. It's like and he's a sort of guy that's always constantly sort of pushing the boundaries with that stuff. He'd be great to get inside his head, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But home recording. Minefields.
Yeah. Brett had like the same thing. He was telling me that he's been doing it, the whole time.
Yep.
Like back in the 90s, finding ways of like doing it all the way through.
Yep.
And so lockdown happened, and it's like, oh well, it's all here.
Yep.
I've even got all the cameras set up and
That's
everything
right.
for all his YouTube and Patreon and all that. And like you say, it was just, well, actually, I've already been doing it for so long, and Yeah, it's here. I've
no
got
big
it.
deal, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Seen it coming from
yeah,
so far away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, and I think this, you know, the same thing is overseas too, in America and things like that. They're all doing it. Everyone's doing it. You know, so you know, but it's still everybody can do it, right? And it's great, but it still comes down to how you play. All comes down to that. Your musical decisions, you know, your time, you know, your time placement, note placement, i.e. groove, right? It all comes down to those factors. Even before you start hitting the red button, you got to play it. You got to work on the track. Got to make sure you construct a part that the client wants. You know, because 9 times out of 10 they give you a guide drum part, right?
Yeah.
And they become so attached to that, right?
Yeah.
So the one thing that you don't do is do the total opposite of what they've given you. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Give them a kind of exactly what they've kind of programmed within reason. You know, there might be things on the thing where you know that they just put something in there just for the sake of it, you know, a drum fill or something like that, you know, and that drum fill is not the most important part. Sometimes what the most important part is where they've put their kick drum and snare drum parts in relation to the bass part that they've programmed, which they may get a real bass player to play to. Because you can never assume that that's going to get replaced. You know, parts get replaced, all right? So you always got to try and play to what's there, and then maybe ask the question later, like, am I playing, is this going to replace the bass part? Oh no, we're going to use a sequence part. Cool, great. So therefore you've got to make sure that your playing fits in that groove, or else if it doesn't, you're the first thing that's going to sound out of time. You know what I mean? And I think that's the pitfall that a lot of drummers don't understand about how hard it is to do it from home, right? When it's just you, click track, and a sequence piece of music, how you've got to make it sound like you're kind of all in the same room together, you know? And, you know, if you listen to Brett's album, the Dark Matter album, that was all done from home. I did that from home, right? Brett's parts were already kind of there. He's the melody, the solos, and things like that. But the bass was going to get replaced, right? So because he told me that, and so I had to play stuff that I knew that it was going to, you know, that the bass player might feed off, you know. That's why those records, those fusion type records, are really hard. Because sometimes if you overplay, it's too much and you're already stepping on someone's toes and you don't even realise it.
Yes.
Until you get the finished product, right? And you kind of go, oh, geez, I shouldn't have played that bit there because it's, you know, I didn't know he was going to play that, you know, that sort of thing. So there's a real, you still got to rely on your musical intuition for this stuff. Otherwise, you're not going to get much work from clients, you know. The pop thing is like you just give them what they want, man. And maybe sometimes what I do, I give them a second take with my little twists of like, hey, here's a little here's what I think you might want to use this, or might want to use sections of it. You know, cut and paste some bits out. And you know, a lot of the times they end up using what I've given them because they didn't think of like, this I could rejig the kick and snare pattern that way. They didn't think of it because they're perhaps not drummers, you know. And you know, Logic has a feature where it can kind of create a drum part to what's already been played, like a bass part, like an AI thing, right?
Yeah.
And some of it's good, some of it is not good. So you know, you got to decipher which ones, like, you know, the client might be happy with sections. And so that's why I always do an alternative take.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that way, you know, you don't want to get that phone call or email going, no, we don't like what you did in the first one, you know, or vice versa, you know. So that's why I should always play what they've kind of given you,
Yep.
you know, because they've got this, I call it demo-itis. You know what I mean? They're just so attached to their demo
Yep.
that anything different from that is like, no, we don't like it. And it happens. I can totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes I've played on stuff that's other people's and I hear the final result. I go, oh, well, that guitar part's different to what I played to. So then it takes me a few listens to get used to. But once you're used to it, it's like, well, that's the new norm, isn't it?
Yeah.
You kind of forget what it sounded like beforehand. I think that's always the pitfall with doing it from home. I think, you know, just got to be wary of that, you know.
That's a really interesting approach that you have to give like these two runs of like, here's the real straight one, and then here's kind of me doing what I'd like to do with it. That's really interesting.
Yeah, without going off the beaten track.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't make it fusiony, man. If it's a pop thing, ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
So you might try different sections, like, you know, instead of, you know, like a chorusy bit, instead of like it being a thrashy hat thing, like open, it might be, you know, a crash ride, Ringo, that sort of swelly, or it might be a full-on bell thing. You know, they won't know what they're like, what they would like until they hear it. You know, so you're giving them the option of like, well, here's the open hi-hat sound type.
Yep.
And also in the second chorus, for example, I've gone to here. Now you might want to use that bit, the bell type thing, in your first chorus. Cut and paste. It's all going to be in time. You know, you're not going to fight the grid. You know, so it's going to be good. And the more options you give people, the more they kind of realise, okay, he's thinking about my song. And of course you do. You've got to think about their song. You know, they've written this song.
Yeah.
It's their original piece of work, you know, so you got to tip your hat to that and show some respect. You can't just get a song and go, oh, I don't like it, but I'll play it on it anyway. I mean, what an insult. I don't like it, but I'll play it on it anyway. It's like, no, you just work on it till you make them happy. And they've called you for a reason, Luke, because they've obviously heard your work or whatever it is, and they know they're going to get something that's going to be okay, you know. But what you got to think about is giving them something that's going to be great.
Yeah.
Give them something great. Give them something that you know. And when you mix it too, here's the other thing too, listeners. When you've done a take, right? Don't send it as raw files. Do a mix. EQ your drums, right? EQ your drums to how you want your drums to sound. In with the track. Maybe put a bit of a mastering job on it, you know, so really kind of get the levels to where normal listening level would be, which is somewhat extremely hot these days. Although the loudness wars have subsided, which is great. You know, not just one big block of WAV file anymore. There are some dynamic, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know, oh man, it was so bad back in the day. And so EQ your drums, balance the mics, so it sounds like it's somewhat of a finished product in their eyes. Send it off to them, and they'll have more of a better listening experience than it being not. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And I also send my drums. Not only the files are raw because there's no EQ, no compression going in.
Yep.
I also send them a stereo stem of what they've just heard, of just the drums being mixed, EQ'd, balanced, and a bit of reverb, you know.
Yep.
So if they want to use that stem in their final mix, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, cool.
Or they can mix from start and get their own flavour on the track.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, it's you know, you're really helping them out, you know. And if they say, "Oh no, we're happy to mix it ourselves," so you go, "Fine, no problem."
Yep.
You know, you know, it's just a resource. It's just a reference. I always say it's a reference. You know how I like to hear the drum kit. You know, and you know sometimes I'm really pleasantly surprised with the mix that comes back and go, "Wow, yeah, that sounds great, man. Awesome, thank you." It's nice to have the same amount of care coming back
Yes.
to you. I like that.
Yeah.
You know, It's like job satisfaction, man.
Yes.
It's like walking away from the gig going, yeah, I had a good night tonight. Yeah. Which doesn't happen that often, folks. But anyway.
I'm glad that it happens sometimes.
It does happen sometimes, man. Yeah. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way that you present the package, though. Like, one of the very first interviews I did was with Daniel Frugia.
Yep.
And he was saying that he provides, similar to you, a bounce of like a drum sound, everything raw.
Yep.
And then a separate, like, here's some like weird sounds
that
I
nice.
had.
Yep.
Like maybe it was a bongo thing, but
okay.
he was like putting like, you know, heaps and heaps of reverb on it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
something.
all this other stuff. Like it was more of a sound effect than a percussion thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, but if I just gave it to them, they'd be like, "Well, that was weird as. Like, what was that?" But like you, oh well, here's what it could sound like.
Yes.
And use it if you want it or not.
Totally. And that's the sort of scenario that you would do. Sort of things you would do if you were tracking with that client in a studio.
Right? Well, what about this?
Yeah, what about this?
Experiment together.
You're flying off ideas. That's what that is. And that's what comes from if you've spent time, if you're lucky enough to spend time in a studio tracking a couple of songs, you know, for a client. You go, you know, you've run it down a few times and tracking. You go, oh, can I overdub I've got this idea for like a tambourine pattern. Great. Awesome. So you lay down some timbre. Oh, how about some, mate, you can use it if you're not, but how about like a cowbell part, you know? Because we could always use more cowbell, all right? You know, because it's whether they want to use it later or not. You're giving them options. And when you're in the session situation, your creative juices should be flowing. And that's not just from the drummer. You should hear what bass players come up with. Because once you've laid down your part, right, you know, bass players then start sculpturing lines, right? And that's the hardest thing. I've always found it fascinating because the bass players can be tied up a little bit with what you do straight away. Because if you're tracking something, you okay, this is the bare. This is what I need to do from a drummer's point of view to lay it down. Right? So it might be a 4 on the floor thing or whatever. But if you're playing a 4 on the floor thing, that doesn't mean the bass player has to play a 4 on the floor thing. He could be playing, or she could be playing, or they could be playing, like lines that are, you know, that work around that, which then elevates the music in sections. The intro, the verse, the bridge, the chorus, right? So when you listen to great bass lines, you know, of great songs, of any song, you know, they're cultivated. They're thought about. They could be the first take. Man, wow, that's a first take? Awesome. We love that. Or it could be sort of like, can we just punch in this section? I got an idea. That's where the magic sort of happens. Jeff Porcaro talks about magic. You always just talk about that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
Right? You always used to say that. For him, it was like either a first or second, maybe a third take, right? Anything beyond that, forget it. You're just regurgitating first, second, third takes, and the take becomes it diminishes in energy and maybe accuracy, like that. Not that I think that Jeff would lack in any of one of those areas, you know, but he talked about that, you know, because it's the spontaneity of, is that the right word? Anyway, of playing in a room with other musos you're feeding off. And I've done enough sessions to realise that that's what goes down. So when you're in your recording room by yourself tracking something, you've got to put that hat on. Let me try give them something a little bit different, something they wouldn't expect, because they'll end up liking it. They might end up liking it, man. You know, I did something the other day which, you know, I ended up putting a cowbell part and a clave on something.
Yeah.
It was a rock song.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, really? You did that? Yep, totally. Just to give it some, like a Latino type effect without having to bring out congas. You know? And he loved it. Loved it. Got it over the line. You know? Because he showed me, he sent me a reference a track from the Bonavista Vista Social Club.
Oh.
Right? You ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ry Cooder did all the music, and
Yeah.
his son played drums on it, but also the beautiful percussionists of that society in Cuba. And the track was like not even the right tempo of what we were doing, but he said it was the flavour of it. You know, and I went and listened to it. I go, yeah, I think I know what you want, but I gotta come up with a drum beat which will facilitate this chorus section, which is this Latino section that he wanted. So I kind of worked on that, and then that's when I went, okay, it definitely needs a cowbell part, like a gong, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I played a clave. I kind of did it like a like a 2-3.
Mm-hmm.
Or did I do 3-2? No. Yeah. So I did a 2-3. 1 a son, not the rumba. The rumba's the anticipated one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Not that one. It didn't work for the track. I tried it. It didn't work. So those sort of decisions. Try it. Nah, I don't think it works. It's got to be this. Maybe simpler. Great. Awesome. Handball it to the bass player. He's going to do his thing on it.
Mm-hmm.
So now he knows that that's the vibe we're going for because the client loves it. That's the direction. Off you go. So it's great that Danny does that, you know, I mean, but he's a very inventive, creative cat, period.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so if you ever watch him play, whether he's doing, you know, the Cat Empire thing or playing in some Latin bands or the jazz thing, you know, he's always putting something on his snare drum, tambos and this and that and shakers and, you know, real kind of outside of the circle, sonic stuff. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like that.
Yeah.
I think his main caddy, I think he loves Brian Blade a lot, man, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
He does.
Is that
yeah.
one of you can hear it. It's like, that's his guy.
He just sent me an album of Brian Blade playing with his dad.
Oh, really?
As like the preacher / like song leader.
Yeah.
So it's like a gospel country
Oh,
sort
wow.
of live.
I'd love to hear
thing.
that.
I'll send it to you.
Please do, yeah.
And I listened to it and was just like, oh yeah, like of course. It's like
It's where Danny gets his vibes from,
Yeah.
It's all about that influence thing too, right? Like we're going back to the early part of this podcast, which seems like it's going like for 5 hours.
Oh my
but
gosh,
I
yeah.
don't really care, man. It's great. I'm having a great time. As long
too.
as you don't think it's boring.
No.
Right? But it goes back to that. What switched you on initially, you know, to make you want to play a certain way? There's always going to be a certain musical thing that you've heard that enlightens you and gets you on a path. And then there'll be another thing that happens. And then there'll be another thing that happens. You know, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of what we do as musicians. We're always going to find something that's going to trigger, you know, being creative or being inventive, you know, or regurgitating old stuff, you know, then everyone can think that you're a genius and it's, man, I'm just ripping off an Elvin Jones lick. Nothing creative about that.
Yeah.
But how cool does it sound, right? You know? So check it out. Check out that guy, you know?
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing I like to do also, like, is to go back and listen to stuff that initially got me turned on. So when I was 13 years old, what was it that I listened to that kind of changed? You know, it might have been, you know, I don't know, Van Halen's 1984 album. Does it still resonate with me? Bet you bottom dollar it does. Still think it's a brilliant piece of work. When I was 15, you know, the Chick Corea Electric Band album, the first one with Dave, put that on. Does it still float your boat? And if the answer is yes, that means it was great back then and it's still great now. But all that stuff was great. You know, you listen to something that's great. You know it's great, man. It's just so I remember going back earlier than you know, when I discovered that record, I went back to the Return of Forever stuff. Yeah. So the mid-70s, you know, and listened to the Return of Forever albums, a couple of them. Oh, so out there, man. I mean, that's the early stages of jazz rock, you know. Man, and Billy Cobham, you know, the Spectrum album.
Yeah.
Listen to that record. That record was like, still is. It's just one of the most amazing jazz rock albums of all time. you know. And so I play that to students a lot, actually. When they bring in gospel chop guys,
Oh yeah.
I go, oh, really? Okay. Let's have a listen to this. And I put it on, they go, and I listen to them going, I go, the licks sound familiar, don't they? You know? But with more dynamics, light and shade, right? Mm-hmm. And then I go, this is 1972. I said, I was 2 years old. 2 years old when this stuff came out. But still holds up today. I go back and listen to what your drumming idols listen to. Find out who they listen to. Go back to those cats.
That is such
and then
great
go
advice.
back even further.
Yeah.
Yeah, go back to, you know, to where it all began. You know, like, you know, your Buddy Richards and Eugene Kroupers. Yeah, even further than that, you know. Your Chick Webb. You can always find old recordings of old cats, especially now with YouTube. It's everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse not to go back.
No, it's all so accessible. Just
It's
type
so
it into your
accessible.
phone and there you go.
Off you go. It's kind of nuts, you know. So it's funny, with this amount of information, students don't take the time to kind of check it out. I know it's like, but I remember I reaped the benefits of listening to music that had come before me
Yes.
to get a good grasp of what the standard is. That's what it is. It's just, you got to find out what the standard is. It's not, you know, it's not your Taylor Swifts. It's not your this. It's none of that. As good as that stuff is, I'm not bagging it, but things have changed so much, you know, and the standards now, to me, you know, kind of been dropped a little bit. But go back and listen to pop music in the 80s or the 70s. Go back, go and listen to a couple of Beatles records.
Yeah.
You know, go and listen to some Stones or something like that. You know, some Jimi Hendrix. You know, Jeff Beck. I'm a big Jeff Beck fan. Love Jeff Beck. Always have. You know, not only because he's playing, but the musicians he had in his band. I mean, you know, great musos. And I always tell some of my students, go and listen to something that's not, that, you know, you don't know who the drummer is. Go and listen to Jeff Beck and just listen to it. You're going to be blown away. They try and find out who the drummer was. Half these kids don't even know who they're listening to these days, man. They've got no idea. I go, name me the drummer out, or they listen to some metal band. I go, who's the drummer? Oh, I don't know. Why don't you know? And half the problem is on, you know, these streaming services.
I was streaming it and it doesn't say on.
It doesn't say. That's half the problem. Actually, that's the big problem. You know, that's to me is like, it's you know, this is a topic for another day, but you know, it's so insulting to the creator. It's like, why, you know, even when you know, listening to an old Jeff Beck album or an older album, the musos aren't listed. You know, so that's really, really frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to go on YouTube, and then you might find
maybe someone's commented somewhere.
Or
on
this is
Discogs, someone's got something. But it's
Exactly.
like, that was one of the best things about getting. I was buying CDs when I was a teenager.
Good.
But you could pull it out. Here's the
absolutely.
thing. Oh, I thought it was X. Like, you know.
Totally.
I wonder who that guy is. I don't know their name.
Yep.
Oh, they've played on this. All
Yep.
right, I'll go like down that rabbit hole. And
Yep.
now, like, you know, the records, you pull it out. Oh,
Yep.
okay. It's all there.
It's all there.
Whereas now, all you get is like copyright Warner Brothers.
And you don't know who played on it. You don't know who mixed it. You don't know who mastered it. You don't know where it was recorded. All those details were on the back of albums in CD sleeves.
Yeah.
You know, and that was and photos, you know, of the band.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the artist, you know, and you can see what they look like. That's such and such. That's, you know, it could be a still photo of them in the studio with headphones on. But at least you know what they look like. And somewhat you could see what gear they're using too, right? So that was always great. And you get none of that today, you know, which is really, really disappointing, you know. And, you know, you picked up on the thing of like, oh, I didn't know that such and such played on that track.
Yeah.
And you find out that it was a different drummer than what you thought it was, you know. And that happened a lot. You know, like I found out there was a Boss Gags song called Breakdown Dead Ahead, which I thought Jeff played on it. It sounded like him. It wasn't him. It was Rick Marotta who played on it. And I went, And he talks about the session. Like, I can't remember what interview it was, which podcast he gave. But, that was news to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started listening to the track in a totally different light.
Yeah.
Going, I mean, I always loved Rick's playing, you know. He's on heaps of Steely Dan records and things like that. But I didn't know he played that shuffle on that track.
Yeah.
Check it out, man. It's a great song. It's called
I will.
Breakdown Dead Ahead. And it's like a shuffle. Like a Lido thing.
Yes.
Which Jeff became, made famous. And it's not Jeff, it's Rick. And
Wow.
It's like, wow, man.
Yeah.
So good.
I had that on one of the Steely Dan records where it was Jeff playing the shuffle, not Purdy.
Ah.
And because I was like, I'd seen all the interviews of like Purdy talking about, this is how I brought
Purdy
the
shuffle.
Yeah. And then I was checking like line notes and I was like, oh, Jeff's playing the shuffle on this one. I can't remember which track off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, right.
Because I think Purdy's like all of Gaucho. Anyway, it's testing my
Yeah,
short-term memory.
Purdy's all over at least the
Royal
Asia
Scam.
album, I think. I mean, we could all be corrected on this,
Yeah.
But Gaucho, it was predominantly Jeff.
Ah. Yeah,
So-
maybe I flipped it. And Royal Scam was all Purdy.
Yeah,
before
maybe, yeah.
Gaucho.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where
Yeah.
it's like, that's exciting. And it gets you to, I go, all right, look into that more.
Yeah.
And just, it opens up the world of music.
And then we, there's the contentious, did, Purdy play on the Beatles stuff, and there's all the internet stuff around that. I just find that really...
Say it. Did he do it?
I don't know, man. I got no idea. He may have done some early stuff, because he does talk about it very passionately, where he says he used to fix a lot of albums.
Mm-hmm.
He was like the fixer, Yeah. He talks about that. But he might have got an early Beatles thing, but I don't think he did, like... He might have done the early stuff. He maybe. I don't know. I got no idea. But, you can't say that he did Pepper and all. Rubber Soul. I don't know. Even that stuff, man, it's far-fetched. But he may have, he might have got his wires crossed on something, and we'll never know.
Mm.
We'll never know. Ringo might be able to tell us, but I don't even think Ringo knows. Because he played on that stuff. Yeah. I think he totally played on that stuff, man. Sounds like him, Have you seen that, some of the early footage? Like, that 8 days a week doco with Ron Howard. I mean, there's Ringo's playing. Yeah, he's... talking about rim shots, how I didn't do much with Larry. Mm-hmm. That was all rim shots. When you listen to it, like this, he's smacking those drums, man. And it's so... The time is so great. And half the time, he probably couldn't hear the rest of the guys in the band. They're all playing by feel. Yeah. What did he say? Like the Shea Stadium, he said he couldn't hear the guys. He could just watch how their bums moved in time,
That's right.
or their feet, it's like... Yeah. And there's a part in that concert where he misses the ending because he couldn't hear him. It's like, that makes sense.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So... no, he played all that stuff, man. I don't know. Who am I to talk about that stuff? But I just find the internet really interesting with all that stuff, the conspiracy side of things, as far as who played on what. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, let it rip. Let's see what happens, man.
Yeah, well, you just got to find a way to bring back credits to the current music scene.
It's got to be that, man.
Yeah.
It's got to be that, because I think it's not, muso's already getting ripped off as it is with streaming.
Mm.
At least give them some sort of like, notoriety on what they played on. Some space on the Spotify list or iTunes. Do they still do iTunes?
I don't know about iTunes, but Apple Music has
Apple
a
Music,
thing.
that's what it's called now, right? Yeah.
It's like best you get is Bandcamp, but like...
Yes, the best is Bandcamp,
But most people don't put their stuff on Bandcamp. That's only like small indie stuff.
That's
so,
right.
Like,
I know. I got heaps of friends of mine that put stuff up in there, and it's still a case of it's more of a case now of selling your like stuff at point of sale, i.e. your gig.
Yep.
At a gig, where you got some merch, you got some CDs.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like hardly anyone's buying the music. You're selling band merch. So it's like
I know.
you're not even making the money off
Coffee
the music.
cups and bloody tea towels and
Yeah.
what have you, T-shirts, you know.
Yeah. My partner's band just did like a little like Australian weekender tour, like Adelaide,
great.
Brisbane, Sydney, Newcastle.
Yeah.
And they made like all of their money from merch, caps, T-shirts.
Unbelievable.
That's it. Like, you know,
Unbelievable.
ticket sales bring in like nothing. Doesn't
Yep.
even cover the cost of the trip.
That's right.
And there's no money from album sales
Yep.
online or anything.
Yep.
It's just, well, we've designed this cool T-shirt that, you know, has the band name
And
on
you're
it.
going to look cool in it.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Which is just wild that it's
Yep.
like, well, the musicians aren't making money from the music.
Yep.
It's
It doesn't
the
make any
T-shirt.
sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. So that's where, you know, this is where there's got to be some sort of government subsidies and things like that to facilitate bands that want to go on the road. There's got to be something. I know there are grants you can apply for, but they're hard to get, man.
Very.
You know.
And most of them are about like overseas
Yeah.
stuff. It's like, oh, we'll help you get to do a tour in Europe or to
But could
America.
Can we at least? Yeah, that's great, but we want to tour Australia. You know, because you can do it. It's possible, but
Yeah.
you do need some backing, especially for indie artists or anyone that's just doing it off their own ticket.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's I kind of get annoyed that I love when the government brought out the Foo Fighters and they played their gig in, I think it was in Geelong or something like that. They funded that, you know, out of COVID. We're going to present you with the Foo, and they played for 40 minutes or something like that. You know, that's great. It's fantastic. Totally support that. But how about on the other side of it, we're gonna also help some bands get back on the road and give them a grant of, you know, touring up the coast, playing some gigs, and giving them some sort of wage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're willing to kind of do it with the big guys, the big bands, which is great because it brings in the tourist dollar, and I get all that. I understand the economics of it. But, you know, grassroots, and they talk about, you know, sport, they talk about grassroots a lot, right?
Yes.
You know, grassroots footy, that's where it all starts. Correct. It does. Get that right, and you're going to have players coming through and, you know, girls coming through playing, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's where it starts. Not seeing it much in the arts. Not seeing much of it, and I think we need that. We need that support.
Well, just look at how many live venues you listed
Oh.
that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And then all of the ones that I was playing at uni,
Yeah.
half of them aren't even open anymore.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, and that's only like 10 years ago. So it's like that the availability of those grassroots small gigs is just diminishing so quick.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I do gigs now, you know, some of the gigs I do where, like, I'm playing with my brother in his quartet, they're jazz gigs, and, you know, no money in it sort of thing, but, geez, I love doing them, right? Because I've got this other stuff I can do, right? And so I've got the other stuff that can facilitate my creative desires, I guess would be one way of putting it, you know? And, yeah, we'll walk away with like $100, and it's being truthful. Might do a gig at the Paris Cat, make that amount of money, and I'd be totally satisfied. But that's not enough to pay the mortgage or expenses. It's not. It's not. And honestly, it's a small club. So if you're playing bigger venues, there should be bigger dollars involved. You know, and if it's not, and if it's an original thing, there should be some help there. You know, I'm sure there is, but it's just really hard to get, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially when you look at the funding structure of how much money goes to, say, like the opera or all of the orchestras.
Yeah.
Like, it was
Where
really
gets
interesting. We've
gets
had
divvied up.
Yeah, like I had Anne Blackburn in, who's like oboist with the MSO.
Yep.
And it's so fascinating because she has this full-time role as a musician to play and practice with the MSO, but that's the only full-time job. Like,
Play and practice with the MSO, exactly,
you know,
right.
like
Yep.
everybody else is like, it's a contract at a time, or here's a tour, or here's a whatever.
Yep.
Come and do a season of 6 months or something. But like, if you get an orchestra seat, you're a full-time employee.
That's right.
But like all the other musicians don't have that.
No.
And like, I don't know if you can apply such a. There's not really a way to like easily transfer that, but the favorite idea I've heard is to like have mandatory Australian support acts for like all the touring
totally.
artists. Like even you know, Katy Perry got paid $5 million to play. What if there was a two-track opener from a local
Aussie band or
like,
something like that up in the stands.
Yeah, on that on the side stage.
Where they used to kind of do it up in the rafters over the over the goalposts. You know,
exactly.
Yeah, totally. You know,
like just this stuff to like, if we're going to put so much money into X, why is there not the Australian thing?
They did that for a while. They you know, for like, as far as, you know, we're talking about the AFL Grand Final entertainment thing. You know, they used to have a couple of bands. Then there'd be the headliner, you know. But you're right. It's the closest thing we got to the Aussie element was when she introduced, you know, Tina, and got up there and sang half a verse and chorus of "Kiss the Girl" and a bit of Chains, and it's great, but it's not grassroots. You know, you're right. Put something on a bit before that. You know. Even if it's just to the audience in the ground. Yeah. Give them a gig.
Or even on a stage outside the venue.
Yeah, give them a gig.
Like, what if there was musicians and everyone got paid?
Hard.
Like,
it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's not that hard at all, you know. Yeah, I did read that, you know, the AFL tried to get the Stones for 20. They said 20 mil, but it was just out of their price bracket.
Wow.
So you get a band like the Stones, they can demand whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And if they say no, you go, okay, so what? You know, that's, we're talking about one of the greatest rock and roll bands on the planet. How great would it have been to see Steve Jordan out in the middle of the G, man, playing with the Stones, a 5-song set. It'd be freaking amazing. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, we the Katy Perry thing, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it was a spectacle, and that's what they want. They want a spectacle, those things. I've done my fair share of AFL Grand Final sort of performances, you know, recorded some stuff, then gone out in the middle and mimed, you know, back in the early 2000s. It's a spectacle. It's all about the spectacle, pre-game. That's all it is. And, you know, at least there were local musos that got a gig, and local kids got a Guernsey, you know. It's all changed now. I mean, it was a couple of years ago, the AFL got found out for not paying some of the dancers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, there was a big uproar for that. It's like, and damn right. It's like, why were they? Well, so you're promising, or what, you selling the thing that, it's an exposure? Oh, that old chestnut, you know, you can sit up in a corner and play, but we can't pay you, but it'd be great exposure for you, you know. Yeah. I can't live off exposure, you know. Yeah. Give me a fee. And I think that it was noted in the media, you know. I don't know what eventuated out of that, but it was definitely something that they couldn't do again, you know. And thank God. Yeah. You know. This is a rabbit hole, man. I don't want to get it out.
So many rabbit holes.
Too many.
And we're only like 3 hours in or something, so...
Oh, man.
Congratulations to anyone that's listened this far.
Unbelievable. If you've made it this far, drop me a text message, man, because I want to hear from you.
All right, we should wrap up.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to book you for gigs, recordings...
No, don't. No,
lessons,
of course.
What's the best way for them to get into contact with you?
Usually through Instagram message or Facebook message is usually pretty good for me.
Cool. I'll put your Facebook and Instagram up on the website.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. I usually, you know, that stuff. I mean, your thing came through the Instagram.
It did.
It did. So I eventually get to it, and we eventually organise a thing.
The power of the Instagram DM.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I get some good things and I get some bad things. Yours was one of the good things, man. Trust me.
There's a lot of spam and lots of just...
just rubbish.
Yeah.
And just rubbish.
Yeah.
No, it's just, there's a lot of rubbish out there. So luckily with the Facebook Messenger, I check both that and the Instagram one. And that's pretty much where people can get in contact with me. for lessons or even just the sessions or whatever it is. I don't know. You know, it's up to them. I don't try and hunt for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You're a busy guy already, so
yeah, I've got stuff going on.
you know, I thought I should just put it out there.
You're a beauty, man. It's been so great, Luke. It's lovely to meet you. And it's like, how long? We've been talking about 3 hours now?
Yeah,
Far out, man.
it's 5:30.
For someone
What
that
time did you
I
come?
don't
2
know,
o'clock. Yeah.
someone that I've never met, your questions are great. They're open. And I know I probably went on a few tangents, but that's what a great interviewer does. When they ask the right questions, they can open up the floodgate, so to speak, you know, and let the individual sort of talk. And it's great. What you do is fantastic, man. So congratulations.
Oh.
To get this much out of me, man, you've done all right.
Oh, thanks very much.
Yeah,
I really
pleasure,
appreciate
man.
that, Gerry.
I really
Yeah.
love the time here, and I hope it's not a bore for many people. But I had a great time, man. Really, thank you for this.
Oh, I'm so glad, and thank you so much. Your drumming's been super inspirational for me.
You got it, man.
And so this is a very special
Great.
opportunity. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, man.